The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
And welcome back. Free Speech TV is in our pledge drive, our membership drive, whatever you want to call it. The theme is Know Your Rights, and we'll get to that in just a second. Yesterday, we brought in about $3,000. The goal for the entire fund drive for the entire network is $300,000 for this pledge drive. And, again, this is an entire television network running on about a $3 million a year budget, which is less than what is the salary of most MSNBC, TV stars, right? I mean, it's just amazing how much gets done on this network with how little money. But still, $300,000 is a lot of money for the network to raise. And typically, this show raises something in the neighborhood of about half of it. So the goal that we're setting for this show is $150,000 over the next 3 weeks. That's $50,000 a week. That's $10,000 a day. Yesterday, we raised $3,000. We fell $7,000 short of our goal. We need to hit these goals. If we don't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. Everything's at risk. If we do hit these goals, then not only is the network going and doing well and our program as well on this network, but there's hopefully some elbow room there for expansion. Although I'm not sure if this particular fund drive, I don't know if this $300,000 budget for this fund drive is including expansion. I'm expecting that probably at least a small portion of it does, but we got to hit these goals. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need to make this network work. And it is. I mean, it has up to this point. Free Speech TV has been around for 15 years, 17 years, something like that, some long time. This program has been on Free Speech TV for at least 7 years, as I recall. And very happy to be here. It's a great home that we've found and a great network. And I personally want to do everything I can to help. We put a lot into this in the early years at our own expense to build our presence on Free Speech TV. And we were pleased to do it. And we continue to contribute to Free Speech TV in a wide variety of ways, frankly. And we need your help. I can't do this alone. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help for Free Speech TV. Now, there is some swag, some goodies, some gifts that are given away. With a $60 gift, you get a pocket Constitution and 2 of either the Know Your Rights in a Demonstration or Know Your Rights at College for LGBTQ Students. And, if you're inclined to go to a demonstration, or if you happen to be an LGBTQ student, I think you'll find those interesting. That's with a $60 contribution. That would be $5 a month as well, your choice. With a $100 contribution, you can get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? This is one of my favorite books. I put a lot of work into this. I spent 3 years. I read literally everything Jefferson wrote. 20,000 pages. I mean, this 10-volume set that was published in 1909 that we found in the attic of an old house that we bought in Vermont in 1997, as I recall. And I had just sold a business and retired, and I just buried myself in Thomas Jefferson's head. And I think you'll find this fascinating book, regardless of your opinion of one of the most important of our founders. And it speaks to modern day conservatism. It speaks to modern day politics. I think it's an extraordinary book. This is with a $100 gift. With the $120 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States. With a $240 gift, you get the Howard Zinn's book, plus the Pocket Constitution, plus the Know Your Rights at the Protest, or the Know Your Rights for LGBT folks wallet-sized thing, and a Free Speech TV sticker. With a $360 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, you get the Voices of the People, People's History paperback, and a book about Howard Zinn's book, a Pocket Constitution, and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with $1,000, come to Washington, D.C., and we'll throw a pizza party for you. Or, whatever you'd like. Actually, the last couple of people who've come have said, hey, let's go to the Thai restaurant instead, and that's what we've done. So whatever you'd like, but, come to Washington, D.C. So those are the gifts. Those are the swag level. And by the way, the What Would Jefferson Do book, I know it's a $100 gift. With larger gifts, perhaps you can negotiate a copy of the book. You might want to talk to the person on the phone, or have some of it allocated or whatever. I think it should have been in all of them, frankly. But regardless of the swag, regardless of the gifts, regardless of whatever you get, the real mission here, and the real thing that we all need to keep in mind, is that Free Speech TV is basically the only independent television media in the United States. And it's here because of you. And we really need to hit this $10,000 goal today. So please call now, 877-378-8660. Thank you so much.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. Boy, we've got a lot in the news today that we're going to go through. The Intercept is reporting that the Russian intelligence service tried to hack into voting systems in the United States. A 25-year-old woman who works for a military contractor down in Georgia. The wonderful privatization of our intelligence services and our military has been arrested for passing that information along to the Intercept. We'll talk about that. Drug deaths are now one of the leading, if not the leading cause of death in the United States. We're going to talk about that in the Rat Park. What's going on with that? Is social democracy only available to white people in the United States? Massive disparities, not just in welfare benefits, but in the ability to vote in Republican-controlled states. Massive disparities between Republican-controlled states with large black populations versus Republican-controlled states that are almost exclusively white. We'll get into that. The revolution is now galvanizing eighth graders. Neil McCabe is going to be with us from Breitbart News to debate with me in the next hour the privatization of our air traffic control system, which Donald Trump yesterday was proposing. But there's amazing news coming out of the Middle East. And I mentioned this to you yesterday, and I said, keep an eye on this. This is a story that I think is probably one of the most underreported stories in the United States, because it doesn't lend itself to bumper stickerness. There are layers of complexity to this, and some of them require a certain understanding of what's going on in the Middle East. And I saw a conversation about this on Al Jazeera that I thought was brilliant. David Hurst was the editor-in-chief of Middle East Eye, a publication that keeps track of what's going on in the Middle East. MiddleEastEye.net is the website, EYE. And it so impressed me. I wanted to get him on, and he's here with us. David Hurst, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. So here we have Qatar, which is this little island, or it's not an island, it's a peninsula, nation state in the Persian Gulf. And please interrupt me at any point if I get any of this wrong, that is majority Sunni Muslim. You would think that everybody likes, the other Sunni countries in the region, Saudi Arabia, UAE, whatnot, would like that. But 2 weeks ago, these nations blocked Al Jazeera from
being broadcast in their countries. And yesterday or the day before, they're stopping flights to Qatar. They're disengaging diplomatically. Can you give us a summary of what's going on, and then I want to get into why?
Well, what's going on is they're basically laying siege to their neighbor. They've stopped the border. They've, as you said, stopped their airspace. There's a problem getting water into Qatar. There's a problem getting food into Qatar. They basically closed the land border. They've done this once before, but now it appears to be more serious. And this follows a series of fake news planted in the American press and also in the Qatari news agency. The Qatar news
in fact, there was a hack of the Qatari news agency that got this out. I mean, this is
that
literally
was a
fake
hack,
news.
and then they planted a false speech said by Al Thani, the Emir of Qatar. But also the Emiratis paid for and organized a whole series of op-ed articles in the American press, basically all saying the same thing, that Qatar was the funder of terrorism. Of course, this is a very difficult word to use in the Middle East because one person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist in the Middle East. But what really is happening here, what this is going back to, is really 2 decades of Qatar's support for pro-democracy movements, but also for Islamist, political Islam, free elections in Tunisia and Egypt. And the Gulf monarchies, the absolute monarchs, thought that all of this was directed against them, that they found the Muslim Brotherhood and democracy and elections a real threat. And they were funding the counter-revolution. They were funding a coup, the military coup in Egypt. They're also bombing Libya against, of course, or breaking all international sanctions. And they were trying also to persuade the Tunisian opposition to undermine the government, and they said no, and they've now formed a coalition. So all over the Arab world, there has been a sort of existential fight, basically, and proxy wars, basically between some very, very rich Gulf neighbors. And now it's broken out into basically open warfare. What some people in Qatar are talking about, certainly what the authorities and the Emir himself is thinking, is that this is personally directed against them. This is not a matter of negotiation. It's like they're demanding regime change.
Yeah, this is an attempt at regime change. Now, the Financial Times is reporting this morning that one of the rationales for this is that the Qataris had spent close to $1 billion to ransom basically out members of the royal family who were kidnapped in a hunting party in Iraq, and that therefore they were giving money to terrorists. This is kind of rich coming from Saudi Arabia. I don't recall any Qataris being on those planes on 9/11, for example. But in any case, but my personal take on this, and I'd love you to reality check this for me, David Hurst, because you're the expert on this, and I'm just an observer here. My personal take on it is that these autocratic kingdoms of the Sunni kingdoms of the region are offended by Al Jazeera, by the news service, which is funded by the Emir of Kuwait and the Kuwaiti of Qatar and the Qatari government, and as you pointed out, Al Jazeera had essentially supported, or at least reported favorably on sort of the Arab Spring, on the uprising of democracy in the Middle East and all that sort of thing, and that what they're really trying to do is shut down basically a semi-independent news source. What do you think?
I think that's entirely true. It features very, very highly on their agenda. They talked about Muslim Brotherhood media. They accused me of being part of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is complete nonsense. We're a totally independent website. I'm also accused of being, funded by Qatar. Again, complete nonsense. But that's how they basically operate. When you have independent media, okay, so Al Jazeera basically did a straight reporting job on the Arab Spring, but anyone who did that was also automatically accused of being part of it. And there was a big social media element to the uprising in Tahrir Square, and Al Jazeera performed a fantastic job, which was universally applauded in reporting the strength of feeling against Mubarak, Hosni Mubarak, as he was then. And the Gulf monarchies never forgave Al Jazeera for that, but they basically said, if it can happen to Hosni Mubarak, it can happen to us. There have been several attempts to muffle Al Jazeera, and it's got to be said that Al Jazeera's coverage has changed itself under a huge amount of pressure. If you examine Al Jazeera's coverage of Yemen, which is another very, very troubled conflict, they went out of their way not to upset the Saudis.
Even though the Saudis have, with their bombing campaign and whatnot, you've got 500,000 Yemenis who are starving to death right now, don't we?
Yeah, indeed, and 10,000 who have died, and the Houthis are still in Sana'a. So militarily and also in humanitarian terms, this is a total disaster. But Al Jazeera have been very careful about their coverage of Yemen, and they were extremely careful, if you saw Al Jazeera in detail, about the meeting that Donald Trump's sort of triumphal meeting with his 50 Arab leaders in Riyadh. And that was the spark for this. That was the sort of green light given to these guys to go ahead with Qatar. And that seems to be confirmed now by a series of tweets that Trump has made, in which he basically said, it's great that someone's now at last taking my advice.
Right. Donald Trump tweeted this morning, during my recent trip to the Middle East, I stated that there can no longer be funding of radical ideology. Leaders pointed to Qatar. Look, in other words, hey, I was right, and yeah. Qatar is the bad guy. So is Donald Trump knowingly or unknowingly throwing in with the essentially Wahhabist and royalist Sunni Arab countries versus one that is arguably a little more democratic, if not in government, at least in media? Or is he? I mean, I don't get it.
Well, I don't think anyone gets it, because there are other messages coming from State Department, from the Pentagon. Again, they're all off the record. But Reuters produced a story out of Washington. It dropped in the middle of the night here, basically saying the opposite: that they liked Qatar, that they welcomed the fact that it hosted the Taliban and Hamas. This is a quote from one U.S. official on condition of anonymity. There's a certain utility, he's quoted as saying. There's got to be a place for us to meet the Taliban. The Hamas folks have to have a place to go where they can be simultaneously isolated and talked to.
They have offices in Qatar.
Yeah, that's in Qatar. That's saying we like Qatar.
Right.
Irrespective of having the biggest air base there. So
right. The U.S. military air base is there.
Military air base in Al Udeid. So there are mixed signals from America at the moment. Certainly, Trump is absolutely in bed with the group of people that we're talking about that are creating so much havoc.
Yeah.
But there are other people who are much more experienced in the Middle East to say, hang on a moment, this isn't in U.S. interest. And it reminds me of the huge controversy that happened with Saddam Hussein when, if you remember, 2 days before he invaded Kuwait, there was a meeting with the American ambassador, April Glaspie. And there's been a huge back and forward about what signals the American ambassador gave Saddam Hussein just before invading Kuwait.
Right. I interviewed her, and she denied telling Saddam Hussein that it was just fine to go ahead, but her denial was very carefully worded.
Indeed, and I think the same thing's happening here. I think America is giving mixed signals to a highly polarized Middle East, and mixed signals could still result in conflict.
Yeah. We're hitting a break. David Hurst, can you stick around for a little bit?
Sure.
This is a topic that as I said, I think it's wildly underreported in the United States. I think it's hugely important, and I really want to dig in with this. We're talking with David Hurst, the editor-in-chief of Middle East Eye, a great news source on what's going on in the Middle East. MiddleEastEye.net is the website. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
You can also tweet David Hurst at David Hurst, Hearst, or at Middle East Eye. Okay, welcome back. David Hurst, you're still with us?
Yes, I am indeed.
Okay, we have lost our commercial stations. They're on commercial break right now. We're still on our non-commercial stations, and we're still on television, on Free Speech TV, on Direct and Dish, and about half our audience is with us. So I want to continue this conversation for the next 4 minutes during this break. Then we'll hit another break just like the one we just did, and we'll summarize for our commercial audience, what we discussed, and we'll have, 4 or 5 minutes to finish up the half hour. Is that all right with you?
Sure, fine.
Okay, great. So as you were saying, if you could continue that line of thought.
Well, this situation where America appears to be giving mixed signals to a very, very polarized Gulf, which in itself is highly armed and full of money and running a whole series of proxy conflicts right across North Africa and the Middle East, is inherently destabilizing. If America produced one message, that would be fine, but it's actually putting two messages across. One from its president, which basically supports the moves against Qatar, and another from a whole bunch of anonymous sources, but I assume they are State Department and Pentagon, who are basically saying, no, hang on a moment, Qatar is useful to us, and they're talking about not just as the site of the biggest military base, the U.S. military base, and the head of the forward center of CENTCOM in the Middle East, but also politically. These sources are saying it's good that Qatar is hosting Hamas. It's good that Qatar is hosting the Taliban because it gives us a neutral space to which to talk to them.
And I would think that to the extent that Al Jazeera is relatively independent media, I realize it's state-sponsored, but they do real reporting as opposed to just pure propaganda like you'd see on Saudi media, for example. That would even be consistent with American values.
Yeah, we're not talking about American values here. We're talking about
American interests.
Realpolitik, and certainly with Trump, he really hasn't mentioned in any of his foreign policy speeches or any of his initiatives the words human rights or democracy. He's said very, very plainly he's not interested in that.
That's true. His embrace of Duterte, his embrace of,
absolutely.
Despot after despot.
So is he interested in free speech? I don't know. But,
but I'm thinking the Department of Defense and the Department of State have to be looking at what Trump just tweeted, going, "Oh my God!" Not only has he inserted himself on the side of the Sunnis into the Sunni-Shia conflict when he went over to Saudi Arabia, but now he's inserting himself into an inter-Sunni battle.
Yes, and it's highly destabilizing, not just for Qatar, which is a small state, but for this has a ripple effect. There are 300,000 Egyptian workers in Qatar, all sending money back home. Do they have to go because Egypt has signed on to this coalition against Qatar? There are 50,000 mixed marriages. There are cars trying to get across the border. This isn't just... originally when I wrote an article about this last week, I used the word spat. I now sort of regret using that word because it sort of trivializes the conflict.
This is huge.
Actually happening.
David, we're hitting that break. We'll be right back. Hang on just a second. We're talking with David Hurst.
Hi, I'm Heather with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving of donations, volunteering, or even spreading the word, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to sustain for more than 20 years. Now, you can give to Free Speech TV through the Branch of Gratitude. This program is a sustainable way to give that reduces waste through paper mailing, postage, and staff hours. By choosing to participate in the Branch of Gratitude, you are joining hands with the socially conscious community and sending a message to the world that Free Speech TV is not only here to stay, it is here to thrive. Please call 877-378-8669 or go online to freespeech.org. Make a difference and join the Branch of Gratitude today.
Welcome back. We're talking with David Hurst, editor-in-chief of the Middle East Eye. MiddleEastEye.net is the website. He's based out of the UK. David, we were talking about how this action by basically a group of autocratic Sunni kingdoms against the Sunni kingdom of Qatar, which hosts Al Jazeera, which also hosts CENTCOM, the U.S. Central Command, from which we do all our military activity in the Middle East, and which also hosts a huge U.S. military air base, which is used for our operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, and everything else. That the State Department and the Defense Department have to be very, very concerned about this, and yet the President of the United States has just tweeted out saying, see, I told the Saudis they need to ferret out the funders of terrorism, and they just found them. It's Qatar. We have just 2 minutes left, David. This seems crazy to me. What kind of damage is being done, and what could be the fallout of this?
Well, the worst case scenario, you could have regime change in Qatar, and you could have one part of the Al Thani family displacing another, and Qatar would turn into Bahrain. It would turn into a satrap, a province of Saudi Arabia. This goes back a long, long way, and there's a long history of animosity about the creation of Qatar when the whole thing was organized by the Brits at the end of the empire and the First World War. But that's the worst case scenario, that actually Qatar, there's a regime change in Qatar. There are many other options. It could be that the emir suddenly folds and changes his foreign policy, closes down Al Jazeera. But at the moment, he's not doing that. He's quite defiant. He had himself pictured kissing Sheikh al-Qaradawi, who is one of the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood. And so that was his response to suggestions that he abandon political Islam. So he's being really quite defiant.
Wow.
And he's put troops out on the border as well. I just want to add one point. When we say the Saudis and the Emiratis, we're not actually talking about the whole of the royal family in Saudi Arabia. What we're talking about is a policy that has been engineered by a 31-year-old lad called Mohammed bin Salman, who's the youngest son of the king, who is the deputy crown prince. He's not even the crown prince. Right. There's another power source around the crown prince himself, who's a much older and wiser guy, his elder cousin.
Who's keeping his mouth shut on this.
Who's keeping his mouth shut, called Mohammed bin Naif, who absolutely doesn't want this policy, who is completely and utterly against any form. He's got a
so we may be looking at a battle inside the Saudi royal family being played out here.
Indeed. And so
amazing.
There's internal reasons for this as well. So it's much more unstable than just saying the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has decided to do this.
Yeah. David Hurst, brilliant. Middle East Eye, EYE.net. Thank you, sir.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. And welcome back. Free Speech TV is in our pledge drive, our membership drive, whatever you want to call it. The theme is Know Your Rights, and we'll get to that in just a second. Yesterday, we brought in about $3,000. The goal for the entire fund drive for the entire network is $300,000 for this pledge drive. And, again, this is an entire television network running on about a $3 million a year budget, which is less than what is the salary of most MSNBC, TV stars, right? I mean, it's just amazing how much gets done on this network with how little money. But still, $300,000 is a lot of money for the network to raise. And typically this show raises something in the neighborhood of about half of it. So the goal that we're setting for this show is $150,000 over the next 3 weeks. That's $50,000 a week. That's $10,000 a day. Yesterday, we raised $3,000. We fell $7,000 short of our goal. We need to hit these goals. If we don't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. Everything's at risk. If we do hit these goals, then not only is the network going and doing well and our program as well on this network, but there's hopefully some elbow room there for expansion. Although I'm not sure if this particular fund drive, I don't know if this $300,000 budget for this fund drive is including expansion. I'm expecting that probably at least a small portion of it does, but we got to hit these goals. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need to make this network work. And it is. I mean, it has up to this point. Free Speech TV has been around for 15 years, 17 years, something like that, some long time. This program has been on Free Speech TV for at least 7 years, as I recall. And very happy to be here. It's a great home that we've found and a great network. And I personally want to do everything I can to help. We put a lot into this in the early years at our own expense to build our presence on Free Speech TV. And we were pleased to do it. And we continue to contribute to Free Speech TV in a wide variety of ways, frankly. And we need your help. I can't do this alone. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help for Free Speech TV. Now, there is some swag, some goodies, some gifts that are given away. With a $60 gift, you get a pocket Constitution and 2 of either the Know Your Rights in a Demonstration or Know Your Rights at College for LGBTQ Students. And, if you're inclined to go to a demonstration, or if you happen to be an LGBTQ student, I think you'll find those interesting. That's with a $60 contribution. That would be $5 a month as well, your choice. With a $100 contribution, you can get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? This is one of my favorite books. I put a lot of work into this. I spent 3 years. I read literally everything Jefferson wrote. 20,000 pages. I mean, this 10-volume set that was published in 1909 that we found in the attic of an old house that we bought in Vermont in 1997, as I recall. And I had just sold a business and retired, and I just buried myself in Thomas Jefferson's head. And I think you'll find this a fascinating book, regardless of your opinion of one of the most important of our founders. And it speaks to modern day conservatism. It speaks to modern day politics. I think it's an extraordinary book. This is with a $100 gift. With a $120 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States. With a $240 gift, you get the Howard Zinn's book, plus the Pocket Constitution, plus the Know Your Rights at the Protest, or the Know Your Rights for LGBT folks wallet-sized thing, and a Free Speech TV sticker. With a $360 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, you get the Voices of the People, People's History paperback, and a book about Howard Zinn's book, a Pocket Constitution, and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with $1,000, come to Washington, D.C., and we'll throw a pizza party for you. Or, whatever you'd like. Actually, the last couple of people who've come have said, hey, let's go to the Thai restaurant instead, and that's what we've done. So whatever you'd like, but, come to Washington, D.C. So those are the gifts. Those are the swag level. And by the way, the What Would Jefferson Do book, I know it's a $100 gift. With larger gifts, perhaps you can negotiate a copy of the book. You might want to talk to the person on the phone, or have some of it allocated or whatever. I think it should have been in all of them, frankly. But regardless of the swag, regardless of the gifts, regardless of whatever you get, the real mission here, and the real thing that we all need to keep in mind, is that Free Speech TV is basically the only independent television media in the United States. And it's here because of you. And we really need to hit this $10,000 goal today. So please call now, 877-378-8660. Thank you so much.
Hey, want to hear that clip again? Subscribe to the Thom Hartmann Program on YouTube to see all your favorite show highlights.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Okay, so we've got this situation in Qatar where the where Trump just, open mouth, insert foot, hugely, right? Oh yeah, Qatar, they're the ones who are funding terrorism. And no, they're not. And the State Department and the Defense Department are like, anonymously leaking like crazy, saying, no, wait a minute, don't pay attention to what Trump says. He's wrong. And really what we're probably seeing is the number 3 guy in the Saudi hierarchy who wants to take the place of the number 2 guy so that he can be in line to be the number 1 guy, is kind of pushing this thing, whereas the number 2 guy is not, but he's being pushed out of the way. But, bloody, and everybody at all, not everybody, but many of these emirates, kingdoms, autocracies, theocracies, whatever you want to call them in the Middle East, these Sunni kingdoms are very upset with Qatar for hosting Al Jazeera. God forbid. So we've got that. Then reality Lee Winner, 25, young woman, 25 years old, working for a company out of Augusta, Georgia. One of the companies that is a contract, it's called Pluribus International Corporation. And they contract with the NSA. Isn't it wonderful how we outsource all this stuff to these private corporations? And but, in any case, she distributed to The Intercept this report from May 5th, from, about a month ago. Today is May 6th. By the way, today is also the anniversary of D-Day. June 6, 1944. Today was the D-Day in Europe, the day that we invaded Europe. And it's also the 49th anniversary of the assassination of Bobby Kennedy. Things perhaps we'll talk about a little bit more as we go on through the program. But in any case, this young woman found this report indicating, and, there's the report and there's the caveat on the report, right? The report says, and this is just Matthew Cole, Richard Esposito, Sam Biddle, and Ryan Grimm writing for The Intercept at theintercept.com. The headline, Top Secret NSA Report Details Russian Hacking Effort Days Before 2016 Election. And they write, Russian military intelligence executed a cyber attack on at least one U.S. voting supplier software supplier and sent spear phishing emails to more than 100 local election officials just days before last November's presidential election, according to a highly classified intelligence report obtained by The Intercept. So that's the kind of summary. The caveat is, while the document provides a rare window, this is the third paragraph of the article, provides a rare window into the NSA's understanding the mechanics of Russian hacking, it does not show the underlying raw intelligence on which the analysis is based. So this is an analysis rather than a, here's the smoking gun kind of thing. A U.S. intelligence officer declined to be identified, cautioned against drawing too big a conclusion from the document because a single analysis is not necessarily definitive. But that said, there's a pretty remarkable amount of detail in this. And the NSA analysis does not draw conclusions about whether the interference had any effect on the election's outcome and concedes that much remains unknown about the extent of the hackers' accomplishments. But what is known is that they somehow got inside one of the companies. And again, this goes back to, we privatized our vote too, right? Isn't that brilliant? The beating heart of democracy, and we privatized that with the Help America Vote Act. And so the hackers apparently, got inside this company. And 2 months later, on October 27th, they set up an operational Gmail account, the company's VR systems, the voter registration systems, presumably. They set up a Gmail account designed to appear as if it belonged to an employee at VR Systems and used documents obtained from their previous operation to launch a second spear phishing operation targeting U.S. local governmental organizations. And these had a Microsoft Word document that had been Trojanized. So when it was opened, it would send out a beacon to the malicious infrastructure set up by the hackers. So, this raises a whole bunch of different questions. What the hell is Russia doing if this is going on?
I think, we all deserve an explanation to that, number one. Number two, what the hell are we doing having our voting infrastructure in the hands of private corporations, private for-profit corporations, with apparently questionable security? Thomas Paine referred to the vote as the beating heart of democracy. If there's any part of the commons that is identifiably the commons, it is the vote. And yet we've privatized that. I mean, this is absolutely insane. On top of that, as I said, we'll get in the next hour into Trump's efforts to privatize the air traffic control system. And I mean, this is privatization week, all week. Trump is looking for things he can sell off to the highest bidder, corporate highest bidder, so that corporations and billionaires can make a fortune. And number three, what are we going to do about this? I mean, how do we create a secure voting system in the United States? Well, how about let's start out by going back to paper, like most of the rest of the world does. Seems like a reasonable first place to start. We saw this redshift start. Okay, so perhaps the Russians have, at least according to the NSA, definitely the Russians have hacked into one of these companies. Whether they've had any effect on the election is unknown. But we saw this redshift start where states that had electronic voting machines the results of the electronic voting machines started diverging from the results of the exit polls, which are the gold standard that we use around the world to determine whether elections are fair and free. In 1998, it got worse in 2000. It got worse than that in 2002 and 2004. The 2000 and 2004 elections were the very worst, and it's backed off somewhat, but we still have redshift going on. If the Russians can hack these things, what makes you think that the Republicans can't hack them? I mean, they're actually in a much closer proximity to them. Many of these companies are run by Republicans. Wally Odell, who was the head of, Diebold Systems back in 2004, said, I look forward to helping deliver Ohio to George W. Bush. So we've got insecure systems. We've got privatized companies. We've got foreign governments involved. And by the way, I would add, if you think that Russia is the only country that's trying to hack into the U.S. voting systems, you're probably naive. And anybody thinking that we're not probably looking at voting systems in other countries would be naive. This is, which is not to say that there's, not to diminish the outrage around this at all. But, this is serious stuff. And it's not, the real issues are not being discussed. Nobody is discussing the privatization of our vote, at least that I've seen in the American media. Nobody is discussing the insecurity of our vote. Nobody's discussing national voting standards. Nobody's discussing the fact that, in state after state under Republican control, it's harder and harder for people to vote. Particularly people of color, people who are older, and people who are younger, but particularly people of color. Whereas in the Republican states up, way up North Dakota, Montana, states like that, oh yeah, no problem. You don't even need a photo ID to vote in Montana. North Dakota, you can register and vote on the same day. Why? No black population of any consequence in those states. And we're going to get into that too, because this now is bleeding over into, things like welfare benefits and the quality of schools and everything else. It's basically wherever the Republicans control a state and there's a large black population, life is tough on poor people. It sweeps up white people in the mix, but obviously the targets are black people. And in those states controlled by Republicans that are largely white, no, hey, you've got pretty generous welfare benefits. It's real easy to vote. And I see this as all part of one whole. We have corrupted our voting system. We have made it vulnerable to foreign governments and frankly, political parties, not to mention non-political actors. I mean, who knows what the 400-pound guy on his bed that Donald Trump talked about, with a political agenda getting into our voting systems. The issues that are being discussed in the media is, isn't it terrible,
Russia might have hacked into VR systems. Yes, that's terrible. And we need to get to the bottom of it. And there needs to be a serious investigation of this. And let's also discuss the fact that what the hell is VR systems doing handling our votes? You know, why do we have private for-profit companies dealing with our votes? Particularly companies, I don't know about VR systems, but, you know, companies like Diebold in the past that have just been nakedly, openly Republican. ES&S with the, Yarosevich brothers, as I recall. Todd, and it's been years since we've talked about this stuff. I mean, this was hot stuff back in 2002. Back when we started the show in 2003, we were talking about this stuff. Bev Harris, you know, black box voting has been on this forever. It's Brad Friedman with bradblog.com. You know, none of those issues are being discussed, and it's all part and parcel of the same thing. There is more to this story. And the media is ignoring it. And frankly, the political parties are ignoring it. And I don't know why. It seems to me like this is an existential threat to democracy. And it's not a threat specifically from Russia. It's a threat from our own love of privatization and our embrace of same with regard to our voting system.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be back more. And your calls right after. And welcome back. Jared in Downington, Pennsylvania. Hey, Jared, thanks for watching us on YouTube. What's up?
Hey, Tom. I want to talk about the situation with Qatar.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Also, just to let you know, I signed up for Patreon, so that's good. So now
thank
I can
you.
finally donate again to your show. It's good to see you on YouTube, the YouTube format, instead of just listening to the audio.
Yeah, thank you. We opened the Patreon site because YouTube changed their policy on ads on political sites, and our YouTube revenue dropped by about 70%. I mean, I'm sure you heard David Pakman had the same problem, the Young Turks, others, and
A lot of people did.
anyhow. But let's talk about Qatar.
Yes, Qatar. The situation with Qatar, I think the one thing that people aren't talking about is the situation with Iran. Everything that I think is going on in the Middle East, from Syria to Yemen to Iraq, and now Qatar and Bahrain, everything goes back to Iran. And it's this Cold War proxy between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And the reason is because I've just recently read an article from Sputnik that just before this happened, Qatar wanted to have better relations with Iran, and they said that Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia was one of the main reasons that they viewed that they were being short-sighted by the United States.
Right. Well, Qatar allows Hamas and Hezbollah, which are supported in depending on your definition of support, but let's just use a broad definition, supported by Iran, and allows them offices in Qatar. And our State Department is leaking to the press. We actually like that because we need to be able to talk to these people, particularly if we're going to try and negotiate peace deals, particularly given that Hamas now basically runs Gaza. But the Saudis and some of these other countries in the region are saying, we don't want anything that has to do with Iran to have any representation anywhere. I don't know if Iran, I should have asked David when he was on, if Iran has offices in Qatar too. It wouldn't surprise me if they do, if they have some sort of diplomatic office there. But anyhow, back to you, Jared.
But yeah, the situation with Qatar is very. I think it could go full on just an invasion by Saudi Arabia. I wouldn't put it past them, but the problem is that there's a U.S. base there, and this is why Trump is so stupid: is that he constantly attacks all these countries, and he doesn't know that there's bases there.
Yeah.
In fact, my brother was stationed in Bahrain, and he was in the Gulf over there. He didn't tell me any pleasant stories about those countries. He described the United Arab Emirates as an awful place. But, like we if we're going to have troops over there, you shouldn't be, opening your mouth and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the one key thing I noticed about the Qatar-Turkey oil pipeline that nobody in the mainstream media is talking about is that there's a pipeline that's going through Qatar, through Saudi Arabia, through Jordan, and Syria and Turkey, which is the main reason for the Syrian civil war. A lot of people are saying that. But Iran also wants an oil pipeline. But what most people don't know is that the Qatar-Turkey pipeline is that one will go through Iraq, and Iraq is an Iranian.
Yeah, it's an ally of Iran right now. Yeah, that's amazing. Jared, thank you. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Rick in Irwin, Tennessee. Yeah. Hey, Rick, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, you know what I was thinking? We got some weak-kneed Democrats. If this situation was reversed on this voting stuff you're talking about, that memo that was released, the Republicans would already be in the Supreme Court demanding that this election was voided and their guy was put in.
Yep.
I don't know why these people aren't doing something.
Yep. No, I don't disagree with you, Rick. Although I don't think that's the solution, but it's certainly, you're absolutely right. That's what the Republicans would be yelling for. And there are some Democrats who have said that, and everybody tries to say, oh, just calm down, things are as they are. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Thank you for the call. Jay in Salem, Oregon. Hey, Jay, what's up?
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I think there's a lot of systematic things that are happening with the voting suppression. Now, one thing, I'm a state officer, and the thing is, I had a problem, when it came to my ballot. And what happened is that they denied my ballot due to the fact that it did not have the same signature as my signature with the one I sent in, for the
with the original registration.
Correct, and they denied it, pushed it back, like right around the time frame that there was an expiration date for me to send it back in. So it's kind of like they were like just trying to tell me that I couldn't vote based on that analogy.
Geez.
Now the thing is, I'm a disabled veteran. I can't write the same all the time.
Right.
And the thing is, though, I have an injury in my hand that prevents me from
Oh, you should attach a note. I mean, you're in Oregon. To the best of my knowledge, there's not a concerted effort to prevent people from voting in Oregon. You should attach a note, explaining that to your form when you send it in.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. And the thing is, it's like they.
Yeah, because that's the only system that they have is biometric, is comparing signatures. Which is how it used to be all across the United States, right? You compare the signature of the person at the time that they vote with the card that has their original signature when they registered. When I was 7 years old, I used to stand next to my mom as she checked people in to vote, watching them do this. And it's actually more secure than most forms of ID. It's biometric. It can't be forged. But if you've got an injury, that makes your signature, inconsistent. You might want to have your doctor write a note or something, just something real brief that you can attach and throw it in the ballot and send it off. Because in Oregon, you've got vote by mail, and I think that'll solve your problem. But Jay, that's a tough one. Jay, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Dave in Federal Way, Washington. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hey, not too much, Tom. I wanted to comment on this reality winner thing and this leaking. I'm not sure what her motivations were, but, I was an analyst for 25 years, and I know this much. Things can disappear. We keep hearing the same thing over and over again. Intelligence is not evidence. Okay, got it. But the bottom line is it can all disappear. And this is by far...
I don't understand what you mean, Dave. Give me an example.
What I mean is, all right, I keep hearing commentators say, look, when it comes to the Trump administration, intelligence is not necessarily evidence that can be used for prosecution. That's true. And when things like when the intelligence is invalidated for whatever reason,
right,
it can all go away. And we as America can forget about this. And this is by far the most dangerous situation America has ever faced. And I guess it'd be better if I quote Bob Baer. Bob Baer's a CIA analyst that talks on CNN quite often. He said that as an American, he is terrified by the prospect that his president may have colluded with a foreign entity. But as an analyst, he is amazed and impressed by the competence of the Russian intelligence service. And see, that to most Americans, that just seems like ambivalence and kind of nonsense. But as an analyst myself, I know exactly what he's talking about.
right.
This may not, the Russians our only hope right now is that they don't want to do anything else. Or they don't feel like they have to do anything else.
Right.
If President Trump was a conscientious American, he would resign. He would resign.
I would add to this, Dave. If you think that we have a problem with Russia, wait until things heat up with China. Russia doesn't control 80% of the merchandise sold in the United States. Russia doesn't manufacture computers that are used in virtually every government agency and every public utility in the United States. The evidence of Chinese penetration into our economic, political, and infrastructure systems is massive. And if we go into conflict with China, like we're looking like we're on the edge of right now around the Spratly Islands, and possibly with regard to Taiwan and possibly with regard to North Korea, if we go into a conflict with China, I have a feeling that they could cripple us a whole lot faster than Russia. These are all concerns, and we get them in this larger context. Back to you, Dave.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, I mean, I love your show. You're a great commentator, the best there is out here. But you are so smart sometimes on this stuff that you actually scare me. Sometimes you scare me too. All right, I just don't want you to take it the wrong way. And as a matter of fact, I don't even think this geopolitical thing is your main interest. That's what's so weird about it. But you do a great work. You do great work, Tom. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. Your thoughts? We have just 30 seconds. I don't have enough time to get another caller in here. You've been in this business. What do you think about the threat from China, and what do you think about the possibility that even some of the computers that are in the United States have EPROMs that were put in China that may have backdoors to Chinese intelligence?
Yeah, well, I think that China is, an incredibly able and capable infrastructure builder. I mean, all right, long story short, China doesn't spend money on their military. Their military actually contributes to reducing their debt. That should scare everybody.
Yeah.
Because military is just consumed, Tom.
That's fascinating. I'd love to have more of a conversation on that. Dave, thank you very much for the call, and thanks for listening to SiriusXM. We will be back. We're going to talk with Neil McCabe about Donald Trump's plans to privatize the FAA, and then we've got more news of the day and your calls, and boy, what a day. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by EcoWine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, EcoWine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
And welcome back. Free Speech TV is in our pledge drive, our membership drive, whatever you want to call it. It's the theme is Know Your Rights, and we'll get to that in just a second. Yesterday, we brought in about $3,000. The goal for the entire fund drive for the entire network is $300,000 for this pledge drive. And, again, this is an entire television network running on about a $3 million a year budget, which is less than what is the salary of most MSNBC, TV stars, right? I mean, it's just amazing how much gets done on this network with how little money. But still, $300,000 is a lot of money for the network to raise. And typically, this show raises something in the neighborhood of about half of it. So the goal that we're setting for this show is $150,000 over the next 3 weeks. That's $50,000 a week. That's $10,000 a day. Yesterday, we raised $3,000. We fell $7,000 short of our goal. We need to hit these goals. If we don't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. Everything's at risk. If we do hit these goals, then not only is the network going and doing well and our program as well on this network, but there's hopefully some elbow room there for expansion. Although I'm not sure if this particular fund drive, I don't know if this $300,000 budget for this fund drive is including expansion. I'm expecting that probably at least a small portion of it does, but we got to hit these goals. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need to make this network work. And it is. I mean, it has up to this point. Free Speech TV has been around for 15 years, 17 years, something like that, some long time. This program has been on Free Speech TV for at least 7 years, as I recall. And very happy to be here. It's a great home that we've found and a great network. And I personally want to do everything I can to help. We put a lot into this in the early years at our own expense to build our presence on Free Speech TV. And we were pleased to do it. And we continue to contribute to Free Speech TV in a wide variety of ways, frankly. And we need your help. I can't do this alone. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help for Free Speech TV. Now, there is some swag, some goodies, some gifts that are given away. With a $60 gift, you get a pocket Constitution and 2 of either the Know Your Rights in a Demonstration or Know Your Rights at College for LGBTQ Students. And, if you're inclined to go to a demonstration, or if you happen to be an LGBTQ student, I think you'll find those interesting. That's with a $60 contribution. That would be $5 a month as well, your choice. With a $100 contribution, you can get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? This is one of my favorite books. I put a lot of work into this. I spent 3 years. I read literally everything Jefferson wrote. 20,000 pages. I mean, this 10-volume set that was published in 1909 that we found in the attic of an old house that we bought in Vermont in 1997, as I recall. And I had just sold a business and retired, and I just buried myself in Thomas Jefferson's head. And I think you'll find this a fascinating book, regardless of your opinion of one of the most important of our founders. And it speaks to modern day conservatism. It speaks to modern day politics. I think it's an extraordinary book. This is with a $100 gift. With the $120 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States. With a $240 gift, you get the Howard Zinn's book, plus the Pocket Constitution, plus the Know Your Rights at the Protest, or the Know Your Rights for LGBT folks wallet-sized thing, and a Free Speech TV sticker. With a $360 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, you get the Voices of the People, People's History paperback, and a book about Howard Zinn's book, a Pocket Constitution, and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with $1,000, come to Washington, D.C., and we'll throw a pizza party for you. Or, whatever you'd like. Actually, the last couple of people who've come have said, hey, let's go to the Thai restaurant instead, and that's what we've done. So whatever you'd like, but, come to Washington, D.C. So those are the gifts. Those are the, the swag level. And by the way, the What Would Jefferson Do book, I know it's a $100 gift. With larger gifts, perhaps you can negotiate a copy of the book. You might want to talk to the person on the phone, or have some of it allocated or whatever. I think it should have been in all of them, frankly. But regardless of the swag, regardless of the gifts, regardless of whatever you get, the real mission here, and the real thing that we all need to keep in mind, is that Free Speech TV is basically the only independent television media in the United States. And it's here because of you. And we really need to hit this $10,000 goal today. So please call now, 877-378-8660. Thank you so much.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. If I can get my headphone in here. Neil McCabe on the line with us right now. He is a writer for Breitbart.com and a political reporter for Breitbart News and author of The Not So Friendly Skies. You can tweet him at Neil W. McCabe or at Breitbart News. And Neil, I understand that the president is saying, "Hey, let's let the airlines, run the air traffic control system." What a brilliant idea! I mean, they've cut routes by 20% to smaller markets. The seat space has shrunk to inhumane levels. This is from the Alliance for Aviation Across America. Fees have risen $6.8 billion just in the last year alone. And under a privatized system, they write, airlines would have free rein to cut routes, disregard customer complaints, and raise fees and taxes to outrageous levels. Sounds like something Republicans would love.
Well, Tom, thank you very much for mentioning my groundbreaking tome, The Not So Friendly Skies. I wrote that for the Washington Examiner, and the idea was, well, maybe your parents told you that Jimmy Carter deregulated the airlines. There was a guy named Alfred Kahn, who is sort of a libertarian conservative economist. And we've been told that the government used to control the airline industry, and then it deregulated the airline industry, and then it grew leaps and bounds. And sort of the central thesis of this book is that not only did the government not deregulate the airlines, it regulates it as much as it ever did, but it certainly has made flying just a miserable hassle, to the extent that I'm taking a trip this week, and I was sort of looking, my flight time would have been 6 hours with 1 or 2 layovers, and I'm going to take a train because I just don't want to put up with the security and the hassles and the layovers. And I think this is what a lot of people are dealing with.
Yeah, I get that, and we can talk about that if you want, Neil. I'm very familiar with this. In 1983, Louise and I opened a travel agency in Atlanta, Georgia. We built it up to a $6 million company, sold it off in '86, and retired, moved to Europe. And so I'm very familiar. And it was deregulation of the airline industry. It wasn't the airlines themselves that were deregulated. It was the terms of the sale of their product and the cities that they had to fly to that was deregulated. And in fact, it provided a great opportunity for Louise and I to make a pile of money.
you know, at the expense, I would say, of probably all of America's travelers. But that's a whole completely different issue. Let's talk about the air traffic control system. Why in God's green earth would we want to, you know, Canada and the UK both, when they had conservative governments, privatized their air traffic control systems. Both of those systems went bankrupt in 2008 during the crisis, during the economic crisis. The one in the UK had to be bailed out with 70 billion pounds of, or maybe it was millions of pounds. I'll have to look it up. It was a whole pile of money anyway. Yeah, it was 65 million pounds taken from taxpayer subsidies. It's 130 million altogether pounds, you know, but, you know, why, and why would we want to do this? Right now, the FAA costs $2.07 a mile to administer our air travel, and they do it for everybody. I'm a private pilot. Whether I'm flying out of a small airport, if I file a flight plan, I'm interacting with the FAA, or whether it's a giant airline. That's 8 cents per mile cheaper than NAV Canada charges, even with all, you know, even with their having to be bailed out and all their subsidies. Why would we do this?
Well, because we have this antiquated system that we want to update to the 21st century.
What does that have to do with anything? The FAA has been in this process, has been in the process of doing that for, geez, a decade and a half now. You know, step by step. I mean, you can't just shut the system down and say we're going to haul away these old computers and bring in new ones tomorrow. You've got to gradually upgrade the system.
To be able to do that, Tom. I mean, they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, on, you know, software and computer.
Oh, I know, and there's been radical upgrades. I mean, I've been inside air traffic control towers, and I can tell you the way they operate now and the way they operated 40 years ago, or you know, however long it was ago in 1972 when I got my pilot's license, is you know, it's like night and day. I mean, it's just night and day. They are so sophisticated now, and they're getting better. Why, you know, this is, if anything is the definition of the commons, a natural monopoly, something that you know, it would be the air traffic control system. The reason the airlines want this to happen is they want it to be like with NAV Canada, where the airlines have 4 seats on the 10-person board. They get to decide what cities are going to have air traffic control, be under positive control. Those would be the cities that the airlines would fly into and fly out of. And you know, already we've seen, as a result of Jimmy Carter's deregulation of the airline industry, a whole lot of places in this country no longer well served by air travel, or if they are served by air travel, it's absurdly expensive. And you know, small towns like Grand Rapids, Michigan, or Lansing, Michigan, versus the hubs. You know, the airlines want a hub and spoke system because it's most profitable, and now they want an FAA that basically caters to that. This seems to me like, you know, it's just another screw the customers. And go ahead.
It's the government regulation involvement that's created the hub systems. The companies, the airlines are responding to the regulation and the encouragement. And that's why you have these there are 29, 30 airports in the country that are these massive super hubs, so that, you know, if you want to get a direct flight in this country, you have to go to Atlanta, Dallas, Denver, Chicago, maybe JFK. It's like, it's absolutely impossible.
Yeah, this was not government regulation that created that, Neil. That was the airlines. They were, and why is it that the CEO of JetBlue, Robin Hayes, said, we intend to use the power gained from privatization to invest where it's most profitable for the airlines? He said, we also need to direct infrastructure improvements into the regions of the country where they'll produce the most benefits, like the Northeast Corridor. The pace of change really needs to accelerate, especially in New York, you know, et cetera. I mean, go ahead.
Something has to change, Tom, right? Flying is not good in America today.
Yeah, I think that what we need to do is we need to enforce the Sherman Antitrust Act.
And there are huge swaths of this country that are being cut off from air travel, and it's really unfortunate. And
it's because United was allowed to merge with U.S. Air, and it was because Eastern and United, American and U.S. Air and Eastern and United, and because the horrible damage that Carl Icahn did to TWA, driving Pan Am out of business, all of this stuff came along with the deregulation.
I would suggest to you that President Donald J. Trump, with his massive investment in our infrastructure and his attempts to sort of reform and remake this air traffic control system, is going to make things better for all of us. And
Well, he's not investing in infrastructure, Neil. His budget is calling for a cut in infrastructure.
It's not just government spending that's infrastructure. It's all the projects that are being held up.
His budget, Trump's budget, is calling for a cut in infrastructure. When he says we're going to spend money on infrastructure, either he's lying or he's talking about we're going to sell off the America's national parks. We're going to sell off, our air traffic control system. We're going to sell off our roads and bridges, and we're going to let private corporations come in and run them and put toll roads on them. In fact, this privatized FAA that they're talking about is going to operate on a fee-based system. And so, gee, where are they going to go? They're going to go to the big cities. You're going to see less and less service to I would think Republicans would be outraged about this, given that, most of the rural areas of America are red states.
Conservatives and libertarians want the government out of the aviation transportation business altogether. And just let it flourish on its own, let it innovate. It's become fossilized, Tom.
So you want our aviation system to be run like a third world country where actually, I don't even know of any third world countries where they let the corporations run the air traffic control system. I'm not sure that America would allow a plane to fly into one.
That's got to change, Tom. I mean, there's nothing.
Why?
Where does it say in the Constitution that a bunch of hacks in the government?
Why our air traffic control system, Neil? Like I said, I'm a pilot. Our air traffic control system is spectacular. It's one of the best in the world. That's why they want to privatize it.
Well, there's other things involved too, Tom. There's other things involved.
Yeah, the airlines are, they're looking for further consolidation when anybody who believes in competition would be wanting to break them up.
Well, why don't we want the airlines to run the airline industry? Like, it's their industry. It's their company. It's their plane. It's their people. It's their deal.
No, it's our airspace, Neil. It is our airspace. We build these airports. We pay for them with tax dollars. It is the air over the United States. It is our safety. It is our families. It's our cities that planes fall out of the sky onto. You can't.
Well, obviously, it's against the law to hurt somebody deliberately. Obviously, it's against the law to present a safe plane as an unsafe plane as safe. That would be fraud.
Neil, the deregulation of the airline industry and the end of Sherman, the Sherman Antitrust Act under Reagan, between the two of those things, you've got over 70% of the airline industry now controlled by 4 companies. That is a functional monopoly. If Delta raises prices by $3 in some market, within a day, American and United will have done the same thing. And you know it. That's how monopolies work. There's no competition in the United States anymore.
Well, obviously there's a lot of things being conflated and a lot of things moving into this. I mean, you also have a problem where you have U.S. flagged carriers are competing against foreign carriers that are being supported by the taxpayers through the Export-Import Bank. You have labor unions, which exert tremendous influence on how
foreign airlines are not being supported through the Export-Import Bank. Boeing is being supported through the Export-Import Bank.
Absolutely. And who buys from Boeing? It's all the foreign carriers.
But okay. So you want more people at Boeing to be laid off, and you want more airplanes manufactured in China and Europe. Fine. What does that have to do with privatizing the FAA?
Are you telling me that the American worker can't compete with the Chinese or the other people? I mean, the American worker is the best in the world, Tom.
Right.
How dare you? How dare you, sir?
Nice try, Neil. Nice try. Neil W. McCabe. You can tweet him at Neil W. McCabe, or you can visit his website, or he writes for Breitbart.com. Neil, thanks for being with us today. Always good talking with you. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. And welcome back. Let's see here. Rich in Greenwood, Indiana, watching us on Free Speech TV. Rich, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Thanks a lot. Just very briefly, from a previous topic, China's islands, the Spratlys and others in the South China Sea, turn out to have been placed due to the discovery of methane hydrates buried in the sediment.
Oh, really?
And yeah, far out, huh?
Oh, geez.
They've got a new manned submersible that'll go down to 4,500 meters, and that was actually on a crawl on CGTN.
Yeah, I saw the story about 2 weeks ago that China had successfully figured out how to mine methane hydrates. The Japanese have been trying to do it for a decade without success.
Yeah. Well, I want to get back on topic, please, for
Sure,
a while.
sure.
Allowed into the queue. Being here on the ground in Indiana, I have access to this PBS station in Indianapolis. And about 2.5 years ago, and this was before I had Free Speech TV, and I used to watch PBS, there were a couple of news shows. One was a travel show that went to Hungary, behind the Iron Curtain, and the other was a sort of a bio story about two Hoosier brothers that are now in their 80s or passed away. One's a pastor, and the other was a Capitol Hill lawmaker. And the thing to offer about the perspective that were these two different shows was how strongly aware and critical of the former Soviet Union, of communism as something to hold a line on and push back on and fight, were the perspectives of these two programs with older Indianans. Governor Mike Pence has been this transformation at the behest of the Republicans, and his new focus on RFRA as it can be applied against the LGBTQ is an example of this new style. But what really stands out is how Mike Pence allowed 4 jobs to Mexico and union busting. And, you know, the only growth industry in the state of Indiana that I'm aware of is the growth of Homeland Security.
Yeah. And probably some parts of healthcare, just because of an aging population.
And the gig economy, because downtown there's this employment company that's organized around, you know, per job kind of hiring that has the new naming rights to the tallest building.
Oh, geez.
And I'm exasperated.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me contribute.
Well, having lived in Indiana, I mean, you've seen Mike Pence up close and personal, whether it's periods for Pence or his, you know, his bizarre referring to his wife as mother all the time and everything else. Do you think most Hoosiers, most Indianans think of Mike Pence favorably or think that he's a doofus?
I would say that it has to do with whether or not they've been bamboozled by the Trump message. And there's an awful lot of disinformation that has misled people.
Yeah.
Having access to a firm stand on awareness is not something that's propagated here.
Yeah.
This information protocol of this state is deep and...
Yeah, Rich, we're out of time. I'm sorry, but thank you. Thank you for your call. Thanks for your comment. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Valerie with Free Speech TV. We're proud to provide you with independent, unfiltered news and documentaries. And as our valued viewer, you can help us continue bringing Free Speech TV well into the future. Join our Pearly Gate Rebels, our planned giving program. Your gift of any size will help ensure democracy endures through an informed citizenry. You can donate property, money, or assets. It's easy. My spouse and I are proud Pearly Gate Rebels. We're doing our part to ensure that Free Speech TV will be here to deliver thought-provoking news and information well into the future. Join us. Call 877-378-8669 or email me at valerie@freespeech.org. Rebel against media owned by billionaires and become one of our pearly gate rebels today.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And Mark in San Diego. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Hey, Tom, I'm so glad that you brought up this voting topic. I think it's one of the most important things. The night before the election, I remember one of the MSNBC pundits, I forget who it was, said, well, it's going to be very difficult for Trump because he's going to have to run the table on all these battleground states, and it's going to be very, very difficult. He can't lose one. So what happens on election night? He runs the table on all the battleground states. And I thought, wow, that doesn't seem right. That's a little fishy to me. And now in the light of this NSA leak yesterday, I think it's time to kind of take a look and see, even though the mainstream media hates to even go there, I think it's time we take a look and see if this election, not only did he possibly lose, lost the popular vote, he might have lost, in all probability, the electoral vote because of the vote tampering. Yeah. I mean, the people, the computer experts at MIT, they've already proved that it's very easy to hack into these machines.
Oh, they proved that a decade ago. And you know, and both of our political parties said, oh, well, you know, we're not going to do anything about that. I talked to elected Democrats who say, you know, we don't want to talk about election integrity because it scares people off and they'll think that their vote doesn't count, so they won't vote. And Republicans, of course, are laughing all the way to the bank because the redshift always works to the benefit of the Republicans.
Can you imagine for one moment if George Soros owned the voting machines,
right?
And all of a sudden, some real unexpected results start popping up where Democrats upset Republicans. Do you think the Republicans would be as silent as the Democrats are now?
No.
I mean, ever since in 2002 is the first year that these electronic voting machines were used in the state of Georgia. That year, two big upsets happened. Max Cleland, who was leading by 5 points going into election night, and Sonny Perdue, the governor, was leading by about the same going into election night. Election day came out, and both of those results were reversed. Max Cleland lost by 5 points, and Sonny Perdue lost by 6 points.
I remember it well. In fact, he went by the name Zen Pickle. My producer at the time of my show, back around that time, lived in Georgia, lived in Atlanta, and went in and tried to vote in one of these precincts, you know, one of these places with electronic voting machines, tried to write in a vote, and it crashed the machine and wiped out the card, which deleted all the previous votes. So he went to the next machine, the same thing happened, went to the next. He took down 5 voting machines by accident. I mean, and there's no paper trail, there's no audit trail, there's nothing. I mean, it's Georgia, yeah, and I'm convinced in that election that Sonny Perdue and Max Cleland actually did win. I mean, Louise and I lived in Georgia for 13 years. We lived in Marietta and in Roswell, the Atlanta suburbs, and very familiar with that. I'm with you, Mark. We got to do something about this. It's a national crisis. The beating heart of democracy, to use Thomas Paine's phrase, is at risk.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with more of your calls after this. And welcome back. Free Speech TV is in our pledge drive, our membership drive, whatever you want to call it. The theme is Know Your Rights, and we'll get to that in just a second. Yesterday, we brought in about $3,000. The goal for the entire fund drive for the entire network is $300,000 for this pledge drive. And, again, this is an entire television network running on about a $3 million a year budget, which is less than what is the salary of most MSNBC, TV stars, right? I mean, it's just amazing how much gets done on this network with how little money. But still, $300,000 is a lot of money for the network to raise. And typically this show raises something in the neighborhood of about half of it. So the goal that we're setting for this show is $150,000 over the next 3 weeks. That's $50,000 a week. That's $10,000 a day. Yesterday, we raised $3,000. We fell $7,000 short of our goal. We need to hit these goals. If we don't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. Everything's at risk. If we do hit these goals, then not only is the network going and doing well and our program as well on this network, but there's hopefully some elbow room there for expansion. Although I'm not sure if this particular fund drive, I don't know if this $300,000 budget for this fund drive is including expansion. I'm expecting that probably at least a small portion of it does, but we got to hit these goals. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need to make this network work. And it is. I mean, it has up to this point. Free Speech TV has been around for 15 years, 17 years, something like that, some long time. This program has been on Free Speech TV for at least 7 years, as I recall. And very happy to be here. It's a great home that we've found and a great network. And I personally want to do everything I can to help. We put a lot into this in the early years at our own expense to build our presence on Free Speech TV. And we were pleased to do it. And we continue to contribute to Free Speech TV in a wide variety of ways, frankly. And we need your help. I can't do this alone. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help for Free Speech TV. Now, there is some swag, some goodies, some gifts that are given away. With a $60 gift, you get a pocket Constitution and 2 of either the Know Your Rights in a Demonstration or Know Your Rights at College for LGBTQ Students. And, if you're inclined to go to a demonstration, or if you happen to be an LGBTQ student, I think you'll find those interesting. That's with a $60 contribution. That would be $5 a month as well, your choice. With a $100 contribution, you can get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? This is one of my favorite books. I put a lot of work into this. I spent 3 years. I read literally everything Jefferson wrote. 20,000 pages. I mean, this 10-volume set that was published in 1909 that we found in the attic of an old house that we bought in Vermont in 1997, as I recall. And I had just sold a business and retired, and I just buried myself in Thomas Jefferson's head. And I think you'll find this a fascinating book, regardless of your opinion of one of the most important of our founders. And it speaks to modern-day conservatism. It speaks to modern-day politics. I think it's an extraordinary book. This is with a $100 gift. With a $120 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States. With a $240 gift, you get the Howard Zinn's book, plus the Pocket Constitution, plus the Know Your Rights at the Protest, or the Know Your Rights for LGBT folks wallet-sized thing, and a Free Speech TV sticker. With a $360 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, you get the Voices of the People, People's History paperback, and a book about Howard Zinn's book, a Pocket Constitution, and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with $1,000, come to Washington, D.C., and we'll throw a pizza party for you. Or, whatever you'd like. The last couple of people who've come have said, hey, let's go to the Thai restaurant instead, and that's what we've done. So whatever you'd like, but, come to Washington, D.C. So those are the gifts. Those are the swag level. And by the way, the What Would Jefferson Do book, I know it's a $100 gift. With larger gifts, perhaps you can negotiate a copy of the book. You might want to talk to the person on the phone, or have some of it allocated or whatever. I think it should have been in all of them, frankly. But regardless of the swag, regardless of the gifts, regardless of whatever you get, the real mission here, and the real thing that we all need to keep in mind, is that Free Speech TV is basically the only independent television media in the United States. And it's here because of you. And we really need to hit this $10,000 goal today. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you so much.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can support the Thom Hartmann Program and see video of our entire 3-hour show over at patreon.com/Thom Hartmann. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Just a couple of quick stories, and then I'll get back to picking up your phone calls here. Bette Midler tweeted out, and I quote, "More sorrow and grief at the hands of madmen in London. Men and religion are worthless." I don't recall, there probably have been some, but I don't recall any voluntary female suicide bombers. I know that when we were invaded and occupied Afghanistan and Iraq, there were on numerous occasions women, typically young women, who showed up and then blew up. But it appears that they were always basically wired with suicide vests and forced to but they're not volunteering. There's something about testosterone and religion that is a very, very dangerous mixture. And Bette Midler identified it. And good on you, Bette. So, of course, you can expect some male right-wing guy who uses religion to promote his own wealth and fame and power to come out and attack Bette Midler, right? Who would it be? Who would it be? Oh, well, how about Mike Huckabee? Yep, Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee says, Bette Midler is worthless. Gender has nothing to do with terrorism. Right. So what do you think about that? And then secondly, I opened the show talking about, and we talked in the bottom of the first hour at some length, this story in The Intercept about the Russian intelligence service poking into American election systems. This was published in The Intercept. The Intercept went to the NSA and said, before we publish this story, we would like to confirm the authenticity of this document. The NSA basically said, show us the document. The Intercept said, okay, here, take a look. Sent them a picture of it. The NSA said, oh, this is interesting. Look at this. It's been folded. So obviously it was printed inside one of these facilities and walked out. We need to find out where it was printed. And then also, all the color printers these days have these little almost invisible color dots on them. And several people have identified the specific printer that this came from by the dots. In other words, the Intercept blew it in terms of protecting the identity of this 25-year-old woman who released this document. So which is more important? The public knowing what's going on, via a free and independent press that doesn't have to always cooperate with the government? Or should we have a press in this country that just does exactly what the government tells them to do? There's just, there's so much on the table right now. But the Intercept is taking some serious crap for this. John Kiriakou, the whistleblower who went to prison, I've interviewed him on this program and on my TV show, has tweeted out, essentially shame on the Intercept. They should not have done this. And there's a number of these. Barton Gellman, the Intercept made egregious mistakes that doomed its source. It handed a color copy and an original doc and told a clearance holding contractor the doc was mailed from Augusta, Georgia. Josh Rogan, the Intercept blew its source's cover. For anyone who wants to leak without getting arrested, he says, I'm at josh.rogan at washpost.com. In other words, the Washington Post will protect you. The Intercept apparently doesn't. Unredacted tweets. Winter cases. This is the second time Matt Cole was involved in the story where the source ended up prosecuted for espionage. The first was my client, John Kiriakou. The Intercept story was written in part by Matt Cole. Kiriakou himself went after Cole on Twitter, saying, the Intercept, you should be ashamed of yourself. Matthew Cole burns yet another source, makes your entire organization untrustworthy. Zen Jardine tweets, will the Intercept be contributing to Miss Winner's defense?
Sure looks like source protection was fumbled. Maggie Haberman, The Intercept may have outed its source on the Russian hack attempt document. She's, with the New York Times. I mean, Glenn Greenwald started The Intercept. You'd think that he would have, frankly, better standards on this. Randy in Ottawa, Iowa. Hey, Randy, what's on your mind today?
Hey, it's a crying shame that the truth tellers are being persecuted and all that other stuff. But I want to move on to this thing with the Kathy Griffin. When Forrest Trump was over in Saudi Arabia speaking to all those men in their white robes and in the Golden Palace, and how many of those, I wonder just how many of those were Wahhabis, were fundamentalists?
Virtually all of them.
Well, I mean, we wonder how many of them were thinking, I'd like to cut this infidel's head off right then and there. So when you think about it, these are the images were in the news already, and then when she picked it up, I don't think she used it tastefully, but Kathy Griffin's always been known for going over the top, and that's by design, the comedy thing. In order to
she pushes the limits. I mean, she's been doing it on New Year's Eve with what's his name, Anderson Cooper, for years, and frankly, my understanding, and I don't know Kathy, and I haven't frankly read a whole lot about this. I don't follow the kind of pop news much. But my understanding is that the message was more about Marie Antoinette and the guillotine, let them eat cake. I mean, this is how Donald Trump might end up. Will a revolution happen? That kind of thing. Than it was, hey, the Wahhabists are going to cut his head off, or we should. But whatever it was, it didn't go over well.
If you put it in context, Ted Nugent has been calling for the assassination of Hillary Clinton, has been making outlandish...
He was essentially calling for the assassination of Barack Obama, wasn't he?
Right. And so, in my view, if she would have taken it a step farther in her what do you call that? Art. It's as an art, a performing art. She should have had a couple of Union stagehands with pikes, and then effigies of Trump and Ted Nugent on both sides, and then she would have looked more ladylike without holding on to the prop.
I think she should have had a guillotine there, but whatever. I mean, but by way of pointing out that this is a let them eat cake reference, but again, I don't know what was in her head, but what I do know, and I think what you're pointing out here, Randy, is that when right-wingers go after people, then Bette Midler being attacked right now by Mike Huckabee, for example. Although it's there's not a severed head, but when right-wingers, Ted Nugent calling Barack Obama a mongrel, as I recall, something like that. It's like, oh yeah, hey, Trump says let's invite him to the White House, right? And let's do white power signs and give the finger to Hillary Clinton's picture and stuff like that, or things to that effect. When right-wingers easily get away with this stuff. Left-wingers, no, you can't get away with it because the right-wing media is so large. The right-wing echo chamber media, that right-wing infrastructure, there's nothing on the left to even come close to equaling it. And so it's just a matter of fighting that one out. Randy, I gotta move along. Thanks for the call. Jim in Lombard, Illinois. Hey, Jim, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I just wanted to say this. Today is the 73rd anniversary of D-Day. I can imagine the vituperous scurrility that the World War II sailors would be spouting if they knew that a Nazi sympathizer is advising the president. Where is the sense of history in this country?
Which particular Nazi sympathizer are you referring to?
Steve Bannon.
I thought you were thinking of Gorka.
Well, both of them.
It's I'm not sure that I would call them Nazi sympathizers, but I certainly am concerned about the embrace of the Trump administration by the hard right. We're seeing this right now. It's look at what happened in Portland. I mean, this is not a good thing, not a healthy thing. Jim, thank you for the call. Very well said. And yeah, it's the anniversary of D-Day, which was run, by the way, by Dwight Eisenhower, with my recollection. right? Dwight Eisenhower, who, who was the general in charge of it, who warned us about the military-industrial complex as president.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We're going to check in with Talk Media News, and we'll be back with your calls as well. Stick around. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And let's see here. Kenneth watching Free Speech TV in DeSoto, Wisconsin. Hey, Kenneth, what's on your mind?
How are you today, Tom?
Hi, Kenneth.
I finally got through.
What's up?
I finally got through to talk to you. How are you today?
I'm well.
That's good. For 22 years, I was in Orlando, Florida, and I was taking care of tourists from all over the world. So I had to learn a little bit of each language in order to start a communication and take care of their needs, to go to the parks and have a good. I was born in 1950. That put me in the turn of the century. I'm 66.6 years old right now, born in November of 1950. So I've been on the line for 2 hours each day listening to your program, and I watch it every day. Religiously, 2 hours a day. I cut 2 hours out from noon to 2 to watch your show. Your show is anywhere from religious subjects to what do you call that again? At 66, I'm a little bit slow in mine.
Come on, Kenneth. You're only 5 months older than I am. It's
oh, really? That close? Well,
yeah. Yeah. So anyhow, what is it that you called about? It says here Trump is the biggest leaker of all. Was that the point you wanted to make?
Yeah, Trump is saying that he's going to find this leak. No matter what he does, he's going to find this leak. But you can see at 3 o'clock in the morning, the leaks coming from the White House are not coming from anybody else's telephones on Twitter, but Trump himself.
Yeah.
I mean, for a guy that doesn't drink and a guy that doesn't smoke and a guy that doesn't do any kind of sins whatsoever, including sleeping with his wife, I mean, it's an amazing sex life the guy's got,
Yeah.
Trump told us, don't believe in fake news.
Well, maybe he needs to start drinking, smoking. I don't know. I mean, it's like there's something fundamentally wrong there, and I've always. It's like, when Romney was running for president, it was like, somebody, literally doesn't even take caffeine, doesn't drink coffee or tea. And in other words, he doesn't ever alter his consciousness in any way. And somehow that seems abnormal to me. Maybe I'm the one who's abnormal, but it seems to me that there's some, now I realize Mitt Romney's doing it for religious reasons. Donald Trump says he's doing it because his older brother died of alcoholism in his 40s or 50s. And I get that, I suppose. Or maybe Trump had problems himself when he was young. I don't know his story. He's not been, real outspoken about it the way George W. Bush was. But, George W. Bush never admitted he was an alcoholic, but said he had a drinking problem and he quit drinking. But it's like, save us from those who think, God save us from those who think that they are absolutely perfect. There's nothing wrong with them and they've got it all figured out. I mean, and Donald Trump certainly seems to fit into that category.
And because, he's got more power than a Pentecostal minister that stands up there and says, so-and-so is sinned. There in the fourth row, we need your money, and they're going to put the money in the basket because the preacher said so.
Yeah.
And that's just like with Trump. If Trump said it, then people said, well, it's got to be true because it came directly from the President of the United States. Just because he's President of the United States don't mean that he's God and don't mean that everything he says is true.
Well, and according to the Associated Press now, yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean that everything he says is true. In fact, they're warning people he can no longer be considered a, quote, reliable source, end quote. Kenneth, thanks a lot for the call. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's possible that in the next minute or three, we will have a call from Talk Media News. But in the meantime, Linda in Montgomery, Texas. Hey, Linda, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I just wanted to commend you for standing up to the Breitbart commentator against the
privatization of the FAA.
The FAA. I'm a pilot. My whole family's private pilots. I have 2 children that are airline pilots. This will be devastating for general aviation. Totally devastating.
I think that's the whole point. I think that's why the big airlines are supportive of it.
Yes, I know. But the Breitbart guy had no clue what you were talking about. And that's what's so sad, because he has this platform and he's out here spouting all this stuff and he doesn't understand what he's talking about. And that's what's so frightening about how powerful they've gotten. So I just wanted to express my opinion and thank you very much for standing up to him. I wish more people would be able to hear you.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Thank you very much for your kind words and for confirming for me that my worldview wasn't crazy, because I kind of developed this in my own. But it's thank you, Linda. Patrick Gavin is on the line with us with Talk Media News. That's strange. Oh, there we go. Patrick, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us. This report brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Ellen Ratner's new book. What is it? Loving What You Do? Doing What You Love? Loving What You Do. There you go. So, Patrick, what's going on in the world today?
Well, obviously, we're all just waiting for the big Comey hearing tomorrow. There's even bars opening up at 9 in the morning.
Isn't Comey the day after tomorrow? I thought Mike Rogers was tomorrow.
Sorry. Thursday. I apologize. Got my days wrong. We're all trying to get a sense exactly of what we can expect, but not only that, because I do think that we have a good idea that James Comey, while not being necessarily sensational, does not plan on holding back from the various leaks that we've ascertained so far. That he will issue a pretty full throttled portrait of exactly what he thinks the nature of the Trump-Russian relationship is. But we're also now getting a sense of exactly how the Trump administration, of course, plans to react to this. A couple of tidbits that we've learned from this week was, the initial plans to perhaps have Trump head to London this week, which would kind of force news outlets to maybe do some, at the very least.
Wait a minute, Trump is going to go to London during an election?
No, the thought was that in the wake of the Manchester bombing, there were some folks in the White House that said, "Well, why do we have the president go there as a sign of unity with our allies?" In
that would blow up in his face so fast.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think that especially thanks to his tweet storms with the London mayor, that would not be a smart idea.
Yeah. Basically, there's only one person in the whole country, I think, Nigel Farage, who still likes him. It's down to that.
Yeah, right. Well, and I think one of the plans was to have him, or one of the thoughts at least, I don't think he ever reached the plan stage, was to sort of have him walk across the London Bridge. But I mean, I think Trump in most capitals of the world at this point would be wise to stay out of public. I think as a trip to the Middle East when recently, I mean, as long as you keep him indoors, he's not going to suffer the wrath of his unpopularity with the public. But anyway, so that's one plan that's been scrapped. There also was this idea of the Trump having essentially what was called a war room, which would be almost a full-time staffed office. Corey Lewandowski, his former campaign advisor, was thought to perhaps lead this, of a full-time operation to dispel all the press or attacks or legal frustrations that they get about their relationship with Russia. They decided to nix that, even though they do think, and I think smartly so, that this is not going to go away no matter what James Comey says or doesn't say. The idea of having a full-time war room is an idea that they've...
war room or not, I mean, there's either something there or there isn't. If there is something there, we all deserve to know about it, and it should come out. If there's not something there, we all deserve to know that, and it should come out. I mean, unless Donald Trump is hiding something serious, and my guess is what he's hiding is that, he's probably, taken a lot of money from Russian banks and probably helped a few Russian oligarchs launder their money through real estate, which arguably might be a crime, even if he knew that it was money laundering, but in all probability isn't a crime. But I think, frankly, the thing he's trying to hide more than anything else is that he's really not a billionaire, or he's not anywhere near as rich as he claims he is. He claims he's worth $10 billion, and even Forbes doesn't buy that. But in any case, we have a right to know. But I think also, I'd love to get your take on this, Patrick Gavin. Tomorrow is Admiral Mike Rogers. This guy is going to be testifying before the House Intelligence Committee, I believe. And my recollection is that he was an Obama appointee. He may be more dangerous to Trump than Comey. I mean, Comey is a lifelong Republican.
Yeah, no, that's exactly true. I mean, I think both of these folks, I think you'd expect some fairly explosive testimony from either one of these guys. I think that, I think most sides are probably expecting Comey to perhaps, certainly at least to draw the most eyeballs. But
yeah, because it's become personal. Because Trump called him a showboater and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think Trump just announced today that he's going to speak to a gathering of religious conservatives on Thursday during the actual testimony, or at least right around it. Obviously, Comey's testimony.
Right, he's going to try and grab the TV screens.
Yeah, exactly. But I think what's interesting is Robert Costa from the Washington Post just tweeted out today that he says that he's been told by two White House sources that President Trump, this is great, does not plan to put down Twitter on Thursday and may live tweet if he feels the need to respond. So, I mean, Thursday is going to be one of these, days in Washington that, everyone's going to be glued to their set to try to see what happens. But
this is reality TV, Patrick.
It's wild. It is absolutely wild. It's funny today. Eric Trump, both Trump's sons were interviewed by Good Morning America, and I think to your earlier point, Eric Trump, who never said public, but according to a reporter who I believe was golfing with him years ago, really talked about how it admitted that the Trump administration, the Trump organization was getting all their money or a lot of their money through Russia. He now goes on Good Morning America today, says, we don't do any business with Russia. We have nothing to do with Russia.
Well, Don Trump Jr. was the one who was quoted as saying that the Russians were funding the Trump organization. That was a few years back.
Okay, sorry, I got my Trump sons confused.
Yeah,
Eric Trump.
Just call him Uday and Kusei. Sorry.
Yeah. But anyway, so right, I think that part of it's going to be just everybody trying to get their message straight about this because I think to your earlier point, a big question is exactly how much money does the Trump team have and where does it come from? I think Al Franken had a great point during one of his book stops this week. When you're an organization that's declared bankruptcy as many times as Donald Trump, it is very hard to get a loan, at least from American banks, I think. And so this is, of course, where Russian banks can come in quite handy.
Or oligarchs.
Yeah.
And not just Russian. I mean, he's got a big deal in the Philippines, and so he's calling up Duterte and saying, hey, great job murdering all those drug users. It's like, oh, really? Please don't do this. Anyhow, Patrick Gavin with Talk Media News. Thank you, Patrick.
You bet. Take care.
Good talking with you. Have a great day. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls. Going to burn through our guests for the day. So you'll be back with me right after this. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
And welcome back. Free Speech TV is in our pledge drive, our membership drive, whatever you want to call it. It's the theme is Know Your Rights, and we'll get to that in just a second. Yesterday, we brought in about $3,000. The goal for the entire fund drive for the entire network is $300,000 for this pledge drive. And, again, this is an entire television network running on about a $3 million a year budget, which is less than what is the salary of most MSNBC, TV stars, right? I mean, it's just amazing how much gets done on this network with how little money. But still, $300,000 is a lot of money for the network to raise. And typically, this show raises something in the neighborhood of about half of it. So the goal that we're setting for this show is $150,000 over the next 3 weeks. That's $50,000 a week. That's $10,000 a day. Yesterday, we raised $3,000. We fell $7,000 short of our goal. We need to hit these goals. If we don't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. Everything's at risk. If we do hit these goals, then not only is the network going and doing well and our program as well on this network, but there's hopefully some elbow room there for expansion. Although I'm not sure if this particular fund drive, I don't know if this $300,000 budget for this fund drive is including expansion. I'm expecting that probably at least a small portion of it does, but we got to hit these goals. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need to make this network work. And it is. I mean, it has up to this point. Free Speech TV has been around for 15 years, 17 years, something like that, some long time. This program has been on Free Speech TV for at least 7 years, as I recall. And very happy to be here. It's a great home that we've found and a great network. And I personally want to do everything I can to help. We put a lot into this in the early years at our own expense to build our presence on Free Speech TV. And we were pleased to do it. And we continue to contribute to Free Speech TV in a wide variety of ways, frankly. And we need your help. I can't do this alone. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help for Free Speech TV. Now, there is some swag, some goodies, some gifts that are given away. With a $60 gift, you get a pocket Constitution and 2 of either the Know Your Rights in a Demonstration or Know Your Rights at College for LGBTQ Students. And, if you're inclined to go to a demonstration, or if you happen to be an LGBTQ student, I think you'll find those interesting. That's with a $60 contribution. That would be $5 a month as well, your choice. With a $100 contribution, you can get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? This is one of my favorite books. I put a lot of work into this. I spent 3 years. I read literally everything Jefferson wrote. 20,000 pages. I mean, this 10-volume set that was published in 1909 that we found in the attic of an old house that we bought in Vermont in 1997, as I recall. And I had just sold a business and retired, and I just buried myself in Thomas Jefferson's head. And I think you'll find this fascinating book, regardless of your opinion of one of the most important of our founders. And it speaks to modern day conservatism. It speaks to modern day politics. I think it's an extraordinary book. This is with a $100 gift. With a $120 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States. With a $240 gift, you get the Howard Zinn's book, plus the Pocket Constitution, plus the Know Your Rights at the Protest, or the Know Your Rights for LGBT folks wallet-sized thing, and a Free Speech TV sticker. With a $360 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, you get the Voices of the People, People's History paperback, and a book about Howard Zinn's book, a Pocket Constitution, and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with $1,000, come to Washington, D.C., and we'll throw a pizza party for you. Or, whatever you'd like. Actually, the last couple of people who've come have said, hey, let's go to the Thai restaurant instead, and that's what we've done. So whatever you'd like, but, come to Washington, D.C. So those are the gifts. Those are the, the swag level. And by the way, the What Would Jefferson Do book, I know it's a $100 gift. With larger gifts, perhaps you can negotiate a copy of the book. You might want to talk to the person on the phone, or have some of it allocated or whatever. I think it should have been in all of them, frankly. But regardless of the swag, regardless of the gifts, regardless of whatever you get, the real mission here, and the real thing that we all need to keep in mind, is that Free Speech TV is basically the only independent television media in the United States. And it's here because of you. And we really need to hit this $10,000 goal today. So please call now, 877-378-8662. Thank you so much.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, with me, a great crew of people, and a lot of, what a pile of information here. I'm looking at our chat room right now, and Sue just posted this, just shared with me this story from USA Today. There's a bar here in Washington, D.C. It's called Shaw's Tavern, and they are hosting a covfefe in honor of James Comey's testimony before the Senate on Thursday. Now, nobody knows what a covfefe is yet, but, this is the word that Donald Trump, tweeted out the other day. It was so strange and so bizarre, but anyway. Saudis take control of 100% of America's largest oil refinery. Oh, this is interesting. Another news story here from the sprawling Port Arthur refinery on Monday. This is from CNN.com. Some just remarkable. Our chat room is live and free, and it's over at ThomHartmann.com. No ads, no nothing. We just do it for you. In fact, it costs us money. But anyhow. All right, let's pick up some phone calls here. And Dan in Skokie, Illinois. Hey, Dan, thanks for listening to WCPT. What's up?
Hey, how are you? I wanted to take issue with the Bette Midler commentary that you gave. I guess fundamentally, you and people on the left, I have some left views as well. I'm not totally conservative, but you're fighting so hard to avoid prejudicial and stereotypical thought processes in connection with these incidents, and then you go ahead and just sponsor a grossly sexist remark by Bette Midler that, frankly, is not really accurate, because there is a growing problem with female suicide bombers, and it's kind of dangerous to discount that as well. The Observer did a really good piece on this in April of 2017, titled "Female Terrorists Are Recruited by ISIS." And let me just share with you a couple of sentences. The women recruited don't want equality, they want escape, and death is that escape. They do so even though Islam forbids suicide.
So which women do the terrorists recruit? They look for women who have been emotionally traumatized by rape, divorce, or otherwise not pleasing her husband, mother-in-law, or family. You're treated as worthless. So the terrorists say, hey, the only productive thing you have left in life is to fight for us. It's the only way to be acceptable. So once again, the women being abused and exploited by men.
So let's blame all men for that then?
Yeah. Dan, as a man, testosterone has screwed up my life a whole lot of times, and I really think it's the most dangerous drug on earth. The vast majority of murders are committed by men. The vast majority of crimes are committed by men. Name a war of any consequence that was started by a woman.
That's not a progressive viewpoint. So essentially, inherent in
I don't think the truth is has to have a political bent to it. The reality is that testosterone leads to wars. This is why 5 of the 6 Iroquois nations forbid men from voting.
So but you're on record basically that saying essentially men are inherently evil.
No, I'm saying men are inherently violent.
Okay, and violence is a negative thing. So I use the word.
You could argue that there are times when violence is useful, but it's broadly speaking. I am of the opinion that if this world was run by women rather than men, if it was a matriarchy rather than a patriarchy, if it was matrilineal rather than patrilineal, as was Iceland for a long, long time, as Norway is moving in the direction of, absolute equity, that you would discuss. And Norway used to be the scourge of Europe. I mean, both my grandparents on my father's side were Norwegian immigrants. And, I heard the stories of the Vikings and how they'd, in fact, Louise and I, traveled around Ireland and England and saw all the castles that were built to repel the Viking invaders. They were the total badasses of the Scandinavians. And but it was patriarchy at that point in time.
And give the truth, care about your feelings.
I beg your pardon?
By people on the other side as well to justify pretty offensive comments about, blaming a whole religion wholesale. It's the same thought process. You're blaming all members of a certain group.
I'm not blaming. I am identifying a biological reality, Dan.
You adopted Bette Midler's statement, and you said congratulations and thank you to her.
Yes, I agree with Bette Midler. I think that religion, when it is used the way that people like Mike Huckabee use it, and the way that ISIS uses it is toxic. And the vast majority of the proponents of that kind of toxic religion, of violent religion, are men. Yeah, I agree with her on that.
So you're blaming men then? Own that.
Well, I'm pointing out a reality to you, Dan. Are you denying it?
Look.
If you are, please tell me. Give me the name of a woman, pope who declared a crusade. Give me the name of a woman imam who declared a fatwa. There are none.
Women terrorists here.
I beg your pardon?
Abduleva, Reem Riashi. I mean, I can name you women terrorists if you'd like. All I'm saying is, you're engaging in the exact thought processes that you oppose when other people use the argument to say, well, it's all Islam's fault.
No, what you're doing is you're taking the exceptions that prove the rule and claiming that they don't.
Don't blame the whole group. Blame, there's individual evil men, yes, but it's not all. Every man isn't somehow flawed.
I didn't say that, Dan. You're putting words in my mouth. You're creating a straw man argument here.
It's men and religion, and you said congratulations.
I said, men and religion can be a toxic mixture, and in this case, in the case of ISIS, in the case of Al Qaeda, you think it's not?
I don't look at it.
You think Wahhabism? I mean, women can't even drive in Saudi Arabia, for God's sake. And this is the country that is exporting Wahhabism all over the world. And Wahhabism is the core of ISIS and Al Qaeda. And it's entirely men driving that process.
A pretty sexist viewpoint. And now when someone points it out to you, you want to point out specific examples. But that's the same logic as someone saying, well, Islam is a fundamentally bad religion. Here are the specific examples. It's the same exact thought process.
No, it's not.
You just don't like it in this case because
it's not. You're putting words in my mouth that are not there. I did not say that, and no, it's not the case, Dan. I mean, good luck. Keep trying, but if what you're trying to say is that men and religion have nothing to do with, the troubles of the world, or that somehow women are equally responsible for the troubles of the world, I think you're going to find, you may find a small minority of white male supremacists who agree with you, but it's probably not more than a handful. It's probably not more than maybe 1 or 2% of our entire population. Dan, thanks for the call.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be back with more of your calls and more of the news of the day right after this. And welcome back. Jack, watching us on Free Speech TV in Petaluma, California. Hey, Jack, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. How are you feeling today?
I am great, but I'll get better, Jack. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Hey, I just wanted to speak to you about the fact that our Orange Wonder said that when he privatizes the air traffic control system, the users are going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Well, guess what's in the bottom of that plane? Majority of it is now Amazon.
It's cargo.
Hey, it's cargo.
Yeah.
That's why you're only allowed one suitcase.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Amazon. I'm guessing that they're probably developing their own fleet. but yeah, it's cargo. A lot of it's actually mail.
Yes, and mail and all these other things. Well, guess where the landing rights get put on? The people on top.
Yeah.
Guess where the FAA rights will get put on? The people on top.
Yeah, you and I, the consumers, are the ones who are going to bear all the costs. And as that woman who called in earlier, who is a pilot, her whole family is pilots, her 2 kids are commercial pilots, and she said, this is going to devastate general aviation, and which is private piloting, which is what I am. I'm a private pilot, not a commercial pilot. And you fly out of small airports, sometimes very often uncontrolled fields, but you still immediately, especially if you get above 10,000 feet, you connect yourself to the air traffic control system. And, unless you're going to land at a big airport, there are no fees associated with that. It's a public good. And these guys want to privatize that, and it's just going to make it more and more difficult for private pilots to be out. This is the damn commons. Anyway, back to you, Jack.
Exactly. And the thing is, why Trump wants to go over to see his Mary over there in England so he can go golfing this weekend. After all, Mar-a-Lago has a sinkhole in front now.
Yeah. Well, he was golfing yesterday, wasn't he, in Virginia?
Yeah. He was golfing all this weekend, and he was worried about the kids seeing his bloody head on Kathy Griffin.
Yeah.
He didn't care 2 shits about.
Oh God, Jack, you can't talk like that. I've got to X you out. I'm sorry. Yeah. Did you dump it? Thank you. Are we in Free Speech TV break right now? We are. Okay. Thank you. We get 25 seconds. Okay. You just my apologies to anybody who might be offended by Jack's language. You can't, and you just can't talk like that. I'm sorry. So, anyhow, I got to tell you about this congressman calling for the murder of all suspects. All suspects. Kill all the suspects. Right. Men and religion. Right after this. Stick around.
Hi there, I'm Marie with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving donations, volunteering, or spreading the word about Free Speech TV, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to exist. And for that, I want to say thank you. Now you can give to the network powered by the people by donating an unwanted or used vehicle through our Vehicles of Change program. If you have an old car, RV, or even a motorcycle, Free Speech TV can use it to grow and thrive. You can make a bigger difference in supporting Free Speech TV by giving an old car. It's a great way to support the network without having to dig into your bank account. Just call 877-378-8669 and ask for more information about Vehicles of Change. Again, the number to call is 877-378-8669. If it has a VIN, we'll take it in. Thank you.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And, oh, this should be interesting. Ricky in Oak Forest, Illinois says you want to disagree with me about multiculturalism?
How you doing, Tom?
Good. What you talking about here?
So, I don't know how long this term has been used. It's new to me, past couple of years. And I hear people trying to say how good it is for society. But I'm a critical thinker. I can kind of consume information and create my own judgment. And I see what's going on in Europe. And it seems to me when you throw people of different backgrounds, religions, cultures together, it seems to be a recipe for disaster. But I keep hearing how people on radio and TV news outlets say multiculturalism is such a good thing, and it doesn't compute in my head. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about it.
Sure. Well, thank you, Ricky. I appreciate a less confrontational question. I don't disagree with your perspective, and this may not sound politically correct, but there's a couple of different ways to look at this. The first is, for example, when Europeans came to this continent, what we said initially to the Native Americans was, we'll collaborate with you, we'll work with you, you can be just like us, but you have to become just like us. And as we started wiping them out and putting Indians on reservations and forbidding them to use their language, we were basically saying, we will give you the advantage of our society, but you have to become just like us. It was like the velvet glove over the iron fist, the destruction of their culture. And, fortunately, there's some of it left. But for Africans who were brought over to this country, there's virtually none of it left. The slave owners did not allow them to speak their language, did not allow them to practice their religions, did not allow them to remember their ancestors. And so you've got, people who are, in essence, badly disconnected from their roots. I would argue the same thing happened to Europeans 2,000 years ago when the Catholics, when the Romans, basically, what ultimately became the Catholics, when the Romans took over most of Europe, and 3,000 years ago when the Celts came through, they let everybody keep their language and keep their religion. But the Romans didn't 2,000 years ago. So, you ended up with a situation where even people from Europe have no connection. I mean, we went back to my grandfather's home in Grimstad, Norway, and there's this rune, this rock with writing on the back of, on the front of it in the backyard that nobody can read, and it's only 700-800 years old. That culture was lost. So I think that there's a lot to be said for people maintaining their roots and maintaining a sense of connection to who they are, whether it's, African Americans wanting to be connected to Africa, or whether it's Italians being proud of their Italian heritage, or, Irish wanting to march in a Patrick's Day parade. On the other hand, probably more to your point, when people segregate themselves aggressively into enclaves that do not interact with the larger culture as a whole
in any meaningful way, then that can become toxic and destructive. And that's what you're seeing in some of these Muslim communities, largely Muslim communities in Europe. I don't think we're seeing it so much in the United States. Most of the Muslim communities in the United States are well integrated into American culture. On the third hand, though, then you look at, for example, the Hasidic communities in the United States. One of my very closest friends, up until very recently, he just emigrated to Israel. Was a rabbi and lived in the Hasidic community in Baltimore, and I've spent weeks with him there, and it's a very insular community, but they think of themselves as Americans. They participate in American politics. It's not like we're completely separate, although they do their own schooling and they dress their own way, and they identify themselves as this is us and that's everybody else. So, there is something to be said for this melting pot idea that we have Jews, we have Muslims, we have Native Americans, we have Christians, we've got Catholics and Protestants, we've got all and we're all living together and working together. And at the same time, I think there's something to be concerned about when communities become too separated. And I just don't know exactly where the lines are or what should be done about it. I would never say to the Hasidic community or to Native Americans, you should completely, you need to completely integrate yourself into our society. That, goes back to my metaphor of the iron fist, inside the velvet glove of our dominator culture. And I think that, maintaining cultural roots and ties is a great thing. And I wish that my grandparents had taught my father Norwegian, and I had learned that. So, how do you do that? This is the thing. This is the thing that right now Europe is struggling with. And frankly, I don't think it's so much that the Muslim communities in Europe, out of which some of these terrorists are coming, and they are very much the exception, not the rule. And the demonization of them by the right in the United States and Europe is hysterical and hyperbolic. But I think that some of these communities are communities that have been traumatized by the West. We went in and busted up the Middle East. We invaded Iraq, we invaded Afghanistan, we took down the government in Libya. We participated in the overthrow of governments in both Iraq and Iran back in the 50s. We've been messing in the area for a long, long time, so there's some legitimate grievances there. Now, those grievances obviously, don't legitimately lead to terrorism. So it's like, so how do you balance that? I don't have an easy answer for that, Ricky. I'm guessing you don't either.
I don't, but the refusal for, I'm going to say the left. I mean, I don't, maybe that's right or wrong, but the refusal for the left to admit that there is, if you don't want to call it a problem, there's potential for a problem. And if you mentioned... Well,
there's no monolithic left, Ricky, first of all. I mean, there just isn't in the United States. The Communist Party in this country has about 500 members. there's no monolithic left. And there's no monolithic right, for that matter. But there are a number of people who are making, political hay and fortune off scaring the hell out of people about people who are different from them. Ricky.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back in just a minute. Stick around. And welcome back. Free Speech TV is in our pledge drive, our membership drive, whatever you want to call it. The theme is Know Your Rights, and we'll get to that in just a second. Yesterday, we brought in about $3,000. The goal for the entire fund drive for the entire network is $300,000 for this pledge drive. And, again, this is an entire television network running on about a $3 million a year budget, which is less than what is the salary of most MSNBC, TV stars, right? I mean, it's just amazing how much gets done on this network with how little money. But still, $300,000 is a lot of money for the network to raise. And typically this show raises something in the neighborhood of about half of it. So the goal that we're setting for this show is $150,000 over the next 3 weeks. That's $50,000 a week. That's $10,000 a day. Yesterday, we raised $3,000. We fell $7,000 short of our goal. We need to hit these goals. If we don't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. The network doesn't raise the money. Everything's at risk. If we do hit these goals, then not only is the network going and doing well and our program as well on this network, but there's hopefully some elbow room there for expansion. Although I'm not sure if this particular fund drive, I don't know if this $300,000 budget for this fund drive is including expansion. I'm expecting that probably at least a small portion of it does, but we got to hit these goals. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need to make this network work. And it is. I mean, it has up to this point. Free Speech TV has been around for 15 years, 17 years, something like that, some long time. This program has been on Free Speech TV for at least 7 years, as I recall. And very happy to be here. It's a great home that we've found and a great network. And I personally want to do everything I can to help. We put a lot into this in the early years at our own expense to build our presence on Free Speech TV. And we were pleased to do it. And we continue to contribute to Free Speech TV in a wide variety of ways, frankly. And we need your help. I can't do this alone. So please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help for Free Speech TV. Now, there is some swag, some goodies, some gifts that are given away. With a $60 gift, you get a pocket Constitution and 2 of either the Know Your Rights in a Demonstration or Know Your Rights at College for LGBTQ Students. And, if you're inclined to go to a demonstration, or if you happen to be an LGBTQ student, I think you'll find those interesting. That's with a $60 contribution. That would be $5 a month as well, your choice. With a $100 contribution, you can get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? This is one of my favorite books. I put a lot of work into this. I spent 3 years. I read literally everything Jefferson wrote. 20,000 pages. I mean, this 10-volume set that was published in 1909 that we found in the attic of an old house that we bought in Vermont in 1997, as I recall. And I had just sold a business and retired, and I just buried myself in Thomas Jefferson's head. And I think you'll find this a fascinating book, regardless of your opinion of one of the most important of our founders. And it speaks to modern day conservatism. It speaks to modern day politics. I think it's an extraordinary book. This is with a $100 gift. With a $120 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States. With a $240 gift, you get the Howard Zinn's book, plus the Pocket Constitution, plus the Know Your Rights at the Protest, or the Know Your Rights for LGBT folks wallet-sized thing, and a Free Speech TV sticker. With a $360 gift, you get Howard Zinn's book, you get the Voices of the People, People's History paperback, and a book about Howard Zinn's book, a Pocket Constitution, and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with $1,000, come to Washington, D.C., and we'll throw a pizza party for you. Or, whatever you'd like. Actually, the last couple of people who've come have said, hey, let's go to the Thai restaurant instead, and that's what we've done. So whatever you'd like, but, come to Washington, D.C. So those are the gifts. Those are the swag level. And by the way, the What Would Jefferson Do book, I know it's a $100 gift. With larger gifts, perhaps you can negotiate a copy of the book. You might want to talk to the person on the phone, or have some of it allocated or whatever. I think it should have been in all of them, frankly. But regardless of the swag, regardless of the gifts, regardless of whatever you get, the real mission here, and the real thing that we all need to keep in mind, is that Free Speech TV is basically the only independent television media in the United States. And it's here because of you. And we really need to hit this $10,000 goal today. So please call now, 877-378-8660. Thank you so much.
Hey, want to hear that clip again? Subscribe to the Thom Hartmann Program on YouTube to see all your favorite show highlights. All the important stories we cover and the issues we care about are at hartmanreport.com. Members of our community can comment and join the conversation.
Welcome back. My conversation with the last fellow about multiculturalism, I've been thinking about it through the break. And particularly the experience that I've had working in and with Native American communities from Arizona to northern Canada. And I did a fair amount of that for some time back in the late 90s. I mentioned the Hasidic community. They are well integrated into American society. But when you think about who did Hitler go after? It was the people who were perceived as different. So it's not so much that the separated communities, and who did Andrew Jackson go after? It was the Native Americans, the people who were perceived as different. And of course, the slaves that he owned. So it's almost like when you voluntarily separate yourself from a larger society, you put yourself at some risk, but there are some tremendous benefits associated with that. And, the sense of fraternity and association and community is powerful stuff. And so I'm not sure that I could even come up with an example. Well, actually, I can. There are communities, and this is something that they're dealing with in both Europe and the United States. There are immigrant communities that are practicing female genital mutilation, that are marrying their kids off at the age of 12, in some cases to relatives, that are doing things that we as a society decided a long time ago, this is just not acceptable. And yet it's still going on. It's going on in the United States and Europe. At that point, that's the point at which, multiculturalism breaks down, or the idea, it's not even multiculturalism, the idea of cultural tolerance breaks down, because there are toxic aspects to every culture. I mean, there's toxic aspects to our culture, our hyper-machismo, our hyper-militarism. I mean, here, you've got this U.S. Congressman, Clay Higgins, right? I'm Congressman Clay Higgins, and here he is, with a vest and an assault rifle. Last month on Facebook, he was posted firing an assault rifle. On Election Day, I'm asking you to rise up and send a strong message to the socialists. And he's a Republican from Louisiana. He called, this is what he said over the weekend. He said, the free world, all of Christendom, is at war with Islamic horror. Not a single radicalized Islamic suspect should be granted any measure of quarter. Every conceivable measure should be engaged to hunt them down, identify them, and kill them. Kill them all. For the sake of all that is good and righteous, kill them all. They're heathen animals. Now, that, in my opinion, is worse than somebody in a community wanting to say, we want to live our way. We want to, we want our women to wear a hijab, or our women want to wear a hijab, or what. It's toxic on both sides. Anyhow, Terry can be toxic on both sides. It can be non-toxic also. It can be very healthy. And we can learn from other cultures. And I think that that's a positive thing. Terry in Asheville, North Carolina, listening on 880 AM. Hey, Terry, what's up?
Hey, and they should educate the people who come here or to Europe about what they're getting into coming into their country.
Right, and the Swedes are doing actually a pretty good job of that. They're taking large numbers of Syrian immigrants, refugees, and they're running them through really, really comprehensive, here's what it is to be a Swede kind of courses, whereas some other European countries that don't have the resources of Sweden, particularly like, Greece, Italy, countries that have been hit really, really hard by the austerity measures of the Eurozone.
Every country needs a good example.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And that's not why I called. I called about Portland.
Okay.
And I feel very sad that it seems like it's the victims who have been forgotten. Instantly, it became a conflict about a rally, and it became loud voices speaking against loud voices. Black, what do you call it? Anyway, the people who stand up for people who have been murdered.
Oh, the anti-fascists?
No, the black...
Black Bloc?
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they speak about the victims.
Yes.
Portland, you had a lieutenant, you had a woman who were murdered, and, what are they talking about? The rally? I mean, they didn't give Portland a chance to grieve. There should have been a moratorium on the problem.
Yeah, and what's so bizarre is that these people called themselves Trump supporters.
Huh?
These white supremacists called themselves Trump supporters.
Well, even calling themselves Trump supporters doesn't validate, not giving people a chance to grieve.
No, I agree with you. My point is that they're politicizing it.
Politicizing it, they're promoting themselves.
Yeah.
They don't even have the sense to use a little decency.
Yeah.
And I just feel that Portland should, 2 people died, get a grip on that, instead of, immediately joining the conflict.
Yeah.
And turning it into something bigger than it should have been.
Yep. Well said, Terry. Well said. Thank you very much for the call. Doug in Hamul, California. Hey, Doug, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Hey, they should have a musical concert about love, and only Muslims should go into the concert and listen to all the music about love, because that's where the problem is. Allah does not love infidels. In fact, they hate them. It's in the Quran, specifically in the Quran. Allah hates us. Allah hates you.
Yeah, you'll find it in the Bible too, Doug.
Not Allah. God doesn't hate you.
Oh, yeah? I refer you to the book of Joshua. Please, Doug, when we get off the phone here, just pick up the book of Joshua and read it from one end to the other. It'll take you about 15 minutes.
Jesus loves you, Tom.
I beg your pardon? Jesus loves me. Okay, right. Doug, what is that what you call to say? He's gone. Oh, that's interesting. It's showing that he's still on the board. Okay, Donna in East Amherst, New York. Hey, Donna, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Just 2 short points. One being, I don't know what Kofefi means, but I have a feeling that I know how it happened. I think it was an Ambien drift-off.
You think he's taking sleeping pills?
I think he, it's very possible. I'm not saying.
Yeah, well, it actually, given that he just came back from Europe, I mean, when I travel internationally through like 7, 8, 9 time zones, I take sleeping pills. That's not an abnormal thing to do to get back into your
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I've done it myself.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're awake one second, and the next second you're Kofefi.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think you're probably right, Donna. That's the most rational explanation I've heard so far, and it makes perfect sense to me.
It makes sense to me. And the other thing I wanted to say about Kathy and her severed head was that, of course, I totally believe in the freedom of expression and freedom of art, and each person has a personal interpretation of what art is, and I think this was dark art, and my interpretation of this was that Trump's head represents the severing of democracy from the body of America.
Yeah.
I would, you know, and as I said, I haven't really read enough about this to comment on it. Do you know, has Kathy Griffiths come out, or Griffin, or how, whatever her last name is, Griffin, has she come out and said exactly what she intended to mean with that photo, or has she just walked away from it as fast as she can since all, you know, the wrath of God came down on her and CNN and everything else?
Yeah, and CNN dropped her and everything.
Right.
But like I said, that was my personal.
She has not explained what she was trying to convey.
Well, she may not be trying to convey that, but that was
Yeah.
my interpretation of him. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, well, that's what good art does, is it gives.
Chopping the head of America off, chopping our democracy right off.
Yeah, and that's one of the characteristics of art, is that, you know, 5 different people can see it and get 5 different messages out of it. Certainly that's the case here, I think. Donna, thank you for the call, and thanks for listening to Sirius XM. Whew, what a day. What a day. Anyhow, we'll be back with more. Stick around right after this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archive.
Coming up on 15 minutes before the hour, back with more of your calls right after this. And welcome back, Ralph in Elizabeth, Arkansas. Hey, Ralph, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. This is my first time to ever call a program.
Well, thank you, and thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's up?
I have a question. It's my understanding that Donald Trump is going to go on live tweet on Thursday to attempt a rebut of the testimony.
Patrick Gavin in the newscast earlier said that there was word of that. I'm not sure that Trump himself has said that. I think it's speculation. I've
suggested that Twitter go offline for that period, for that live period. Wouldn't that be great?
It ain't going to happen, but yeah, that would be interesting.
Unless we have a hacker.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to encourage that.
No,
I think it would actually be fascinating to watch Trump live tweet the Comey testimony. You know, I mean, he's a reality show star. He's running the country like a reality show. It's a terrible thing for America, but it's sort of like, you know, watching worldwide wrestling. You know, it's like, you know, you can't stop looking at it. You know, even though you know it's fake, or the people can be injured, but you know, it's like it's I don't know. It's just it's a very imperfect metaphor, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think getting the message across, getting the message across to the people, let the people hear this without interference, you know, from the White House. I don't think that's right, and I just wanted to put my 2 cents in.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for the call, Ralph. Chris, listening to X-Ray FM in Portland, Oregon. Hey, Chris, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I didn't want to waste my call on a conspiracy theory, but hearing about the Russian hacking or whatever of the voter, the current thing today that you were talking about earlier, right. You wonder if the connections, you know, with Chris Kobach and Crosscheck and all that stuff, if there's a possibility that there's a link between that and all the other Russian stuff that's going on. It's rather conspiratorial, but I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, it's not inconceivable. It's why there needs to be a good, comprehensive, bipartisan or nonpartisan investigation into all this stuff. But it needs to go way beyond that. I mean, you know, if Russians can hack into our voting systems, so can Republicans, so can Democrats, so can the Chinese, you know, so can the Syrians, so can the Israelis, so can fill in the blank, right? It's like it's the skill to hack is not, you know, limited to any one country. And so what the hell are we doing privatizing our voting systems and then running them on systems that are insecure on the internet? This makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it would be interesting what Greg Palast has to say about that.
Yeah, well, I think I could predict it, and for that matter, Brad Friedman, I'm sure, has some thoughts on it too, and it'll be interesting to check out bradblog.com and see what he has to say. But this is more proof to me, whether there is any there or not in this report from The Intercept, in this NSA report, which is a summary. It's not actual intelligence, and it's not actual information or evidence. But whether there's a there or not, the fact that it's a possibility tells us that our voting systems are not what they should be. And that I think is the story that the media is totally missing. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Elizabeth in Farmington, Michigan. Hey, Elizabeth, what's up?
Hey, hi, Tom. I really enjoyed your conversation. I think it was with Dan about the male principle, the having the feminine involved in the runnings of the world. And there's a great book called Magdalene's Lost Legacy. It's by Margaret Starbird.
Mm-hmm.
And she does a fantastic job of making your point, or you're making her point, that we are divorced from the feminine aspects, and that Christianity did go a long way for causing that divorce to keep men in positions of power, but that the feminine is removed, and that we are burning out the earth. And
are you familiar with the chalice and the blade?
It's similar to that. Hers is she goes more into the symbolic numbers and the sacred union in Christianity, but her premise is yours and many others, that we need a balance. That
Rianne Eisler writes about this brilliantly. She's the author of The Chalice and the Blade and numerous other books. I've known Rianne and her husband for years and years. And also The Alphabet and the Goddess by Leonard Schlein, The Alphabet versus the Goddess by Leonard Schlein, another brilliant book on, although his is more like, how did we get here?
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to agree. I thought that your point was well taken. I wanted to agree with it. And just to finally leave you with something that came to me while I was reading Margaret Starbird's book, is that peace is the heaven that we seek. We don't. This earth is our heaven, but through war we continue to destroy it. And if we just maintain peace around, none of us would have to die to get to heaven. We'd be there.
Yeah, heaven and hell are within our own hands.
Right.
Amen. Elizabeth, thank you for the call. Very well said. Charles in Opelika, Florida. Hey, Charles, what's up?
Hey, I love your show today, Tom.
Thank you, Charles. What's up?
I'm sorry, what was the name of the conservative you were speaking to earlier?
That would have been Neil McCabe.
Oh, you got him today. You spanked him today.
Oh, okay.
You stomped him on a good one. But my topic was basically the way that the Republicans are demonizing Democrats as calling us radicals. But I'm going to get off that because you had an interesting topic today. And this started, I had a question to ask you since Donald Trump went to the Middle East. And basically, it seems like we've done a reset with this country. As far as the Republicans are concerned and the conservatives. They would rather be on the side of the Sunnis and the side of Saudi Arabia fighting against what Obama did as far as stabilizing the Middle East.
Right.
When he signed the peace deal, when we signed the deal with Iran.
Yeah, I think the subtext, I'm sorry, Charles, finish your thought.
Well, it was a reset because basically, if you can remember the election, his last election for presidency, running against Romney and the Speaker of the House right now.
Yeah, Paul Ryan.
His name. Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan coming on television saying that, Iran is coming up with a nuclear bomb or a nuclear weapon that is almost in the developmental stage, and basically turning his side of America, the Republicans hysterical. And that's basically how they was winning that vote.
Oh, yeah. The Republicans are really, really good at using fear to drive their voters. But I think that one subtext to the agenda of the Trump administration is to wipe from the history books any accomplishments by America's first black president.
Of course. But the sad part about it is they have people brainwashed with Fox News and other right-wing radio that we're setting us. I mean, if they do the reset, then they're basically setting America up for the next war.
Oh yeah.
And because it's all. This is a corporatocracy, if you want to call it. This is not a democracy, and this is the United States of corporation, because basically, it's the oil. It's the oil dummy. It's all about these people that run these oil companies that don't want to be in. Have to fight against prices of Iran oil, and that's why we're going through all of this in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for that influence, and I'd like for you to speak on this more if you can, we wouldn't be in.
I think you said it really well, Charles, and it's self-evident. And this is the reason why we've been supporting Saudi Arabia, and so why we have been supporting the export of Wahhabism, which ended up biting us in the butt on 9/11. And is continuing to in a whole lot of other ways, and it's wreaking havoc all across the region. And I think we really need to be seriously looking at our policies with regard to this. Charles, thanks for the call. David in San Francisco. Hey, David, what's up?
Oh, hi, Tom. Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, I'm glad you were talking about the Commons a little back there. And as it relates to voting machines, when they started coming out with them 20 years ago, they had the chance to do shareware. The
open source software, yeah.
Exactly. And the idea that we're being colonized, if you can imagine being some desert town or some desert county or somebody up in the hills in the mountains or whatever, and you don't have a lot of cash in your county, and you've got to buy these expensive machines that are always requiring upgrades and security validation. And the worst of it is that the company copyrights our vote, and in order to do a recount, we have to pay them copyright privilege to be able to tell how we voted.
Right.
And the very idea that America was stupid enough 20 years ago to go with this corporate software that does not give us anything better.
Well, this was the Bush administration's brilliant idea. I mean, they sold it to us in 2002. That's when the Help America Vote Act was passed. They sold it to us based on the butterfly ballot in Florida. We don't want that to happen again, do we?
Well, yeah, much less. If you remember 2 or 3 years after the 2000 election, the printer who actually did the card stock for those Chad votes told the public that he had warned the governor and Catherine Harris that the card stock was too thick and it would guarantee Chad's, and they told him to go with the thicker card stock. So it was a conspiracy from before voting day. But the other thing I wanted to raise was Trump's damage control. When you look at the International Monetary Fund 50, 70 years ago, gave America, the U.S. dollar, the preeminence of the currency of the world. So all of the exchange rates go against the U.S. dollar. Now, when Trump says something stupid and ruins makes the U.S. dollar shudder on the international front, he's forcing every other currency in the world to shudder.
Yeah.
And so there's an interesting option. Moses had no law of Jubilee, that every once in a while, when the money becomes so corrupt, you just have to keep
You reboot it. You reset it. It may well happen, David. I think what's more likely is that the dollar is simply going to stop being the reserve currency for the world at some point. I probably in a decade or so. David, thanks for the call. Thank you all for being with us today. It's been a great day, and we'll be back tomorrow. Interesting tech.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
And don't forget, tag You're It. See you tomorrow. The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets.
Super beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeats.com.